Keir Starmer has caved into the European Union once again, this time by reducing university fees for EU students from £38,000 to £9,500 per year. Now, that means that EU undergrads will pay the same as Brits, which could flood our unis, push up grades and squeeze out natives. Once again, as Keir Starmer put Brussels before Brits. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. £250,000 migrant mansions being handed out in the country. And then we find out today from Lee Anderson at PMQs, a Pakistani asylum seeker was given an HMO in Ashfield after nurses were evicted. He went on to rape a vulnerable child. The asylum clampdown plan today promises to get tough, but in actual fact, it turns out more than half of those the government wants to evict will be able to stay. Are we one event away from things going off this summer? How much more needs to happen before the country says enough is enough? The woke politicians go on about a number 10 in the north. It'll all be the same. Don't worry. Things can only get better. But I wonder if they've got their heads buried in the sand. Get in touch. The usual way, GBNews.com/your say is the way to do so, or scan the QR code on your screens now. But now it's time for your news headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The top stories this afternoon. Kemi Badenoch has accused Sir Keir Starmer of leaving his successor with a defence funding black hole and claims he was too weak to cut welfare when he had the chance. The clash comes after Sir Keir Starmer promised an extra £15 billion for the armed forces over the next 4 years. But Treasury figures show the government has only identified £10 billion of the money. At Prime Minister's questions today, Kemi Badenoch said the numbers don't add up and challenged the Prime Minister over who will pay the missing billions.
The Prime Minister has only increased spending by 0.01%. We can count, the generals can count, the Kremlin can count. His plan doesn't add up. How can the Prime Minister possibly stand there and say that this is enough?
While Sir Keir Starmer hit back, accusing the Conservatives of weakening Britain's defences when they were in power.
Their record is cutting defence spending. My record is raising it to £300 billion and rising. Their record is cutting frigates by a quarter, cutting mine hunters by a half, and leaving 47 of 49 defence programmes delayed or over budget. My record is the biggest boost to defence investment since the 1980s. Their record is missing army recruitment targets every year for 14 years. We've given our armed force the biggest pay rise for 20 years and increased defence funding by £15 billion a year. That's a record I'm proud to stand on.
In other news, 2 Hampshire police officers are under investigation for potential gross misconduct over arrest and handcuffing of stabbed student Henry Novak. The Independent Office for Police Conduct says the officers were the first to arrive at the scene late on the 3rd of December last year. The watchdog says they may have failed to recognise Henry needed urgent medical help after he said he'd been stabbed and couldn't breathe. It's also examining the decision to arrest and handcuff him rather than provide immediate first aid. One officer is also being investigated over whether they appeared to dismiss Henry when he said he'd been stabbed. Millions of households in England, Scotland and Wales will pay more energy from today as Ofgem raises the price cap by 13%. The average gas and electricity bill now rises to £1,862 a year. The regulator says suppliers faced higher wholesale costs during the US and Israel's war with Iran. The cap limits what suppliers can charge per unit of energy, but it does not put a hard limit on a household's total bill. Elsewhere, Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has banned asylum seekers from being housed in a new-build home after a backlash over plans for a development in Shropshire. It comes after more than 80 asylum seekers were set to move into 20 new-build homes in the small village of Stoke Heath. The homes are reported to be worth around £250,000 each. Locals say they were told the development would be used for affordable housing. The Home Office says the Home Secretary has now introduced robust processes to make sure new build sites like Stoke Heath can never be considered again. And the government says it's trying to fix a prison system it claims was left just days from collapse. Ministers are launching a review into violence, drugs and organised crime behind bars as they try to make jails safer and better at cutting reoffending. Former Home Secretary Amber Rudd will lead the review. The government says recent figures show early signs of progress, with staff assault, self-harm and self-inflicted deaths all falling. But ministers say they now want to root out the criminal networks and illicit drugs that continue to drive violence inside prisons. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more in half an hour.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Tatiana. Welcome to the show. Now, Keir Starmer and Reform UK MP Lee Anderson, they clashed today at PMQs over whether illegal immigrants should be deported from the United Kingdom.
In Ashfield, 4 workers, including 2 nurses, were kicked out of their HMO, and Serco put 4 illegal migrants in this HMO. One of these illegal migrants was a Pakistani national. He went on to rape a young girl, a vulnerable young girl, on a park in Ashfield. He's now doing 14 years in prison. This was a monster allowed into this country by this awful government.
Now, this comes on the same day as the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has announced that newly built homes will no longer be used to house asylum seekers. But we had to force that statement out of them after an entire day yesterday. And the move follows reports that 83 asylum seekers were due to be housed in newly built properties on a Shropshire estate in Stoke Heath. You can see pictures on your screen there. GB News is in the locale, and that's now been dubbed Migrant Street. £250,000 mansions. Look at them. The kind of starter homes you could dream of as a taxpayer. They've been empty for over 1 year, and the locals found out yesterday they're going to be stuffed to the gills with asylum seekers. Look at that. That's their patriotic response to let them know they're going to stand strong. That's a children's playground there. That was built with the assistance of local children, we learned from locals, overshadowed now by this estate that will be packed full of asylum seekers staying at the taxpayers' bill in homes that Brits can only dream of affording. The lunatics have taken over the asylum, and this came on the same day Shabana Mahmood promised to clamp down on asylum in the UK. Well, while we wait for Alex Armstrong, our reporter, to come up from Stoke Heath to talk to us directly from that community, I'm joined in the studio today by GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. It is a Wednesday, Nigel. Business as usual, 3 hours of arguing. Let's start with this case. It's everything that's wrong with modern Britain. People work their socks off. They get up at the crack of dawn, they go to work, they save up, and the dream of home ownership for our generation was a given. It was the bedrock to a lasting community life, to get out, to get yourself started, to have something to believe in, to build on, to give to your children, snatched away now by spiralling costs. And so when people see properties like that, let's face it, dream properties, simply being doled out to asylum seekers, is completely and utterly unacceptable.
Which is why Shabana Mahmood has banned it.
She hasn't.
Well, I mean, what do you mean she hasn't banned it?
OK, let's analyse that, shall we? Because we chased Shabana Mahmood in the Home Office all day yesterday for statements on this, because locals are furious. There's a protest on Saturday. They're going to step up and they're going to stop this. And the statement we got was this: new houses should never house asylum seekers. Well, I agree with that.
Yeah.
But she didn't say these houses won't house asylum seekers. She said the Home Secretary introduced robust processes to ensure new build sites like Stoke Heath can never be considered again. That's not the same as a ban either. So we can't fall for the government press release. Those properties in Stoke Heath are going to be stuffed with asylum seekers unless the locals raise significant enough concerns to make it stop. And they're only raising up to stop it because they got caught with their fingers in the till by GB News, by the locals, and this is going on all over the shop.
Yeah, and the point there is that what the Home Office is saying is it should never happen. So in other words, that what is happening here shouldn't be happening. How they're going to stop it, I don't know, but it shouldn't be happening, and that it won't happen in future. There is always a question also about why these properties were empty for a year.
Well, why do you think that was?
I don't know.
OK, let's assume it follows the national pattern. And, you know, I've had so many hundreds of viewers and listeners contact me over the years about this precise problem. I think I know quite a lot about it. Here's the pattern. They get built, they're too expensive for people to afford. Mortgage rates go up. Their salaries can't keep up. The developers get wind of the fact there's a landlord called Serco. Serco, the government-owned landlord, will pay more than anyone can afford in the local area. They sit on them for a bit, they leave them on the market, they don't come down in price, and they suddenly sell them to the government. So how convenient. Yeah. Suddenly, Serco guarantee full occupancy for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, all paid for by the taxpayer, and hey presto, 81 geezers rock into houses like that. That's how it works, Nigel.
Well, it sounds very like a Syrian family that moved in fairly near to me. This goes back a few years when we had the Syrian settlement scheme. But this was a 6-bedroomed house. It was a council house, and the council couldn't let it. They did not have a family that would fill that house.
Do you believe that?
Yes, I do. I do, because I was intimately involved in that particular case.
They couldn't have found the local.
That is right. They
family who wanted that house.
So what would have happened to that house is they would have had to to sell it, and they'd have lost it to their own housing stock. A Syrian family moved in. It's a little village around where I live, and everything's fine. They've settled in perfectly. They've been accepted by the locals, and that was the right thing to do. Better that it was being used than that housing stock is then sold off.
OK, well, look, I've just heard that Alex Armstrong is in the area. He's got some locals who want to talk to us. He's getting them together. He'll be up on air in about 10 minutes' time. While we wait with expected breath on that, let's give the Home Office spokesperson statement. Now, they said this. As I just said, new homes should never house asylum seekers. We can all agree with that, right? Earlier this year, the Home Secretary introduced robust processes to ensure new build sites like Stoke Heath can never be considered again. Well, those processes, if they came in earlier this year, clearly didn't work, did they? Because Stoke Heath is being considered. It's about to be filled with asylum seekers. This is the point. We can't believe the smoke and mirrors, and that is why the locals are going to speak to us in a minute and take into the streets on Saturday. Now, let's move on quickly. More than half of asylum seekers whose claims are rejected under the government's proposed new laws published today are expected to remain in the UK anyway. Now, that's according to the Home Office's own analysis. That's right, the Home Office's own analysis says more than half of the people they want to kick out can't be kicked out. Ever get the feeling the lunatics have taken over the asylum system once again? Let's now speak with the former Director General of UK Border Force, Tony Smith. Tony, let's start, if we can, about the migrant mansions there in Stoke Heath. This is happening all over the shop, mate. It's been happening for years. You know as well as I know the government's hoovering up houses, be they mansions like that, be they slum dwellings in northern towns. They stuff them full of asylum seekers. The locals haven't had a voice. And now the Home Office's own data today says under their tough new crackdown, more than half won't ever get kicked out anyway. It's a farce.
Yeah, I mean, the story about the accommodation, Martin, I think you guys have put the cat amongst the pigeons there, like you often do. I expect there'll be quite a lot of people running around in the Home Office right now trying to figure out what's happened here. I mean, where you've got the Home Secretary saying that she's not going to permit something like that to happen, and then it has happened. And it only really works in there. I was there a long, long time, Martin. It only really works if you've got trust between your senior officials and your ministers, so you're communicating regularly on what ministers want and what officials are doing. It sounds to me like a bit of a gap there on this housing issue, because no, they should not be moving asylum seekers into new homes at all. I think that's a political statement, to be fair to the Home Secretary, but it's according to your stories anyway, and I've got no reason to disbelieve what you guys are reporting. It is happening. So I'm glad you're reporting on it, and I hope something is done about it. I hope we do get very clear guidance coming out to the public about what is going on with asylum accommodation and Serco, and what circumstances the indigenous population are being displaced in favour of asylum seekers on financial and economic grounds. Now, that is a really legitimate question that you guys in the media are asking, and political commentators will need to come back on, but they do need proper advice from their officials and from Serco and from everyone. So we're very, very clear about this, Martin, because there's a lot of questions that you're raising here, and I'm afraid I don't know the answer. All I would say is that does not seem right to me, and I'm sure it doesn't seem right to the vast majority of your listeners.
Tony, you're right. And here's something that continually perplexes me about how these boneheaded decisions are made. Everything seems to be about pounds and pence, right? It's like this house here, clearly it's a luxury home by most people's standards. I mean, most people would die to live in a property like that. Look at it, Tony. It's an absolute dream home, right? And it's new. And it's been built by the local authority. They will tell us, well, it's cheaper. It's cheaper to put people in there than it is in a hotel. But what they never seem to understand, Tony Smith, is that Stoke Heath is a community of around about 300 locals. There's nothing there. There's a couple of primary schools within a stone's throw of where there's a children's playground right there. 82 asylum seekers are going to be thrown into a community of 300, and they never seem to take into effect the cultural impact, the emotional impact, the psychological impact, the national impact of what it says to hard-working people who can't afford that, to see it given away to strangers from outsiders under their nose. You can't put a price on that. And, Tony, it feels like a betrayal.
Yeah, I know, Martin. I feel the frustration here. And I think, there is a problem in this country, has been for a long time, about integration and resettlement of migrants. Whatever your views are on immigration, legal or illegal, we're not good at integrating people. We're not good at persuading our communities that there is positives to bringing people into your community. I studied this in Canada for a couple of years when I was over there on attachment. They're pretty good at that. They have these schemes where, you actually make sure that these... Firstly, the community is satisfied. These are really, really desperate people. I mean, look with the Ukraine scheme, right? They were generally accepted as being genuinely people in real need, and the British public opened their hearts and their homes to that. But we're not seeing that here, Martin, because we're not getting that vibe, are we? That what's happening? These homes are going up with people we don't know who they are. We've got no documents. We're not being told very much about them, and they're being, as you say, kind of imposed upon communities without any community engagement. That is fundamentally wrong in my view. So we do need to get a grip on community cohesion and liaison between the Home Office, the local authorities and the asylum support teams to make sure this is properly being exposed, because at the moment I'm really worried about it. I don't think it is being properly discussed and debated out there.
I think you're right, Elizabeth. And also it's really worth pointing out, to read out the Home Office statement, new houses should never house asylum seekers. That does not say new houses will never house asylum seekers. It said they should not. Now, there's a very different thing. I think until people are told this won't happen anymore, people have every right to be very, very sceptical. Tony Smith, as always, a pleasure to have you on the show, former Director General of UK Border Force. Thank you, as ever, for being so forthright. Now, Serco has previously said that they've taken all appropriate steps to confirm the suitability of addresses, and added that they work closely with local authorities who are involved in the selection of individual properties. Now, still to come, white working-class kids are the least likely of all demographics in Britain to go to university. This week, a report came out promising to support them, and guess what? Today, they are being excluded from scholarships to the best universities in the land, or the white working classes being excluded. That's next here on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, But I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK.
Oh, thank you. And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Your time is 3:23 with you with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, they're calling it Asylum Street, stuffed full of migrant mansions. And, of course, it's Stoke Heath. Our man Alex Armstrong is there for us. Alex, I believe you're with the concerned local there. Over to you, Captain.
Thank you very much, Martin. Yeah, I've just been at what's being dubbed as Migrant Street. It's a beautiful new development in what's being dubbed a hamlet by locals, by the way, Martin, because it's that small, that rural. There are cows on the back of the development there. That's how little there is to do. No buses, no local shops, nothing. And you can imagine in a small little town like the one I was in, the impact that would make. I've actually come here into a bigger town where most of the locals are today to find out what they think now. There's a gentleman here with me. He's having a nice pint, actually, and I don't blame him because it's a lovely day. Hello, sir. How are you doing?
Hello.
Well, we want to ask you about what's going on, of course, just down the road from here with this housing that's going to be looking after potentially up to 80 asylum seekers. What's the impact had on your town?
Well, at the moment, nothing. But when I first come here from Wolverhampton, it was very quiet, and there were Draytonians, proper Draytonians, and the immigrants come in and they're mixing, and you've got to live and live with it. But what's happening up the Stoke Heath is a bit naughty on the government. It's taking the mickey, actually, because what they're doing is they're bringing, in my opinion, immigrants in that are, and they're putting on top of the, you earn things, don't you? Like, you earn a place in position, and they're coming in and they've got nothing, and they're going right to the top of the tree, which obviously annoys a lot of people. I've no problem with immigrants at all. I've lived in Jamaica, I've been all over the world, and live and let live. And they've got somewhere to live and to work. Yeah, I won't go into it because it's too complicated.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, right? And I think this gentleman speaks for a lot of people. I love your hat, by the way. Old and don't care. Thank you. Enjoy your pint. Lovely. Thanks for talking to us at GB News. We do appreciate it. This is what it's all about, hearing from local people. And a mixed feeling, Martin. When I was down actually at what's being dubbed as Migrant Street, locals came up to me and said they're terrified. There's women there. There's children there. There's a kids' play park that they're telling their kids that they can't go to anymore because they're trying to teach them not to do that. And of course, of course, that's had a massive impact on people. And this gentleman's right. He said that not all of them are bad people, but that's a feeling those people in that area have. And of course, that's made a big impact on them, Martin.
Thank you very much indeed, Alex Armstrong, for taking the temperature of the locals there. Looks like he's getting ready for the England match later on. Thank you very much indeed, Alex Armstrong. Now, moving on to our next topic, a topic close to my heart. Are white working class kids being thrown on the scrap heap? Well, reports suggest that many diversity scholarships and bursaries at top universities such as Oxford and Cambridge are available to students from ethnic minority backgrounds, but they're not available to white working class students. Universities have been accused of a two-tier academic society. And let's now speak with the senior lecturer in inequality and the anarchist, great friend of the show, Dr. Lisa McKenzie. Lisa, here we go again, darling. It was Monday. It was Monday that you and I talked about a so-called government plan, the independent inquiry into white working class educational outcomes, promising to change all of this. Today we find out, the white working class kids are totally exempt from scholarships to the best universities in the land, and the white working classes are already the least likely to attend any of these universities. Lisa, it's sometimes felt this country hates its own people.
Yeah, I mean, this is not anything new, though. I mean, working class people have been kept out of elite spaces forever. We always have. Me and you know that. To try and get into an elite space as any working class person, you've got to work 5 times harder. You've got to be 5 times better. But I think what's happened over the last 20 years is this sort of push for equality. But the only measurement they've had of equality is regarding race or sexuality or even gender. And what that's done is lots of people have got protected characteristics where, you can give them a help out, you can have a diversity scheme, you can have scholarships. But the one group that is not there is white working class people there. I've had arguments with academics over 20 years about this. The idea that, we tick the white box and white working class people are in the same category as, for example, the royal family, because white working class is not a category. But they've got absolutely lots of disadvantages and structural disadvantages as well. So it's not surprising that Oxford and Cambridge, I imagine there's very, very few white working class students at Oxford and Cambridge, if any. I taught at the University of Durham. I taught at the London School of Economics. I taught at the University of Nottingham. And there was I could count on one hand how many white working class students there were there. And actually, when I went to the University of Nottingham as a student, I was 31 at the time. At 32, I was a mother. I was the only person from Nottingham in the class. Never mind the only woman, never a working class woman, never mind the only mother, and definitely the only person who lived on a council estate. So, there's nothing new here. It's just, I think, people like you, Martin, are giving a voice to it and actually showing it that it's a problem. We know it's been going on a long time.
It's heartbreaking, though, Lisa, because back in my day, I was very, very fortunate. I've said to you before, I got a full grant. I'm a coal miner's lad. My dad got a National Coal Board top-up grant. We didn't have to pay to go to university. I would never make it to university now. From my background, couldn't afford it. The sums of money involved are the sums of money you hear about if you win the football pools. Those sums of money, we're not taught, are we? We're not taught how to handle money when we're working class. The debt's terrifying. We're not up to it. It scares us off, and we get left behind.
Yeah, and I would go further than left behind, Martin. I say that we're left out. It's purposeful, because when you've got Oxford and Cambridge that have got these sort of schemes and scholarships, it's a choice. They're choosing who gets the scholarships. And if they're choosing who gets the scholarships, they're also choosing who doesn't get the scholarships.
Yeah.
So for me, it's about purpose. It's purposeful, it's structural. Whenever we hear about government spending and where they decide to spend the money, it's all political and purposeful choices. And places like where we come from, the Red Wall, we're always at the back of the queue. That's not an accident. It's purposeful. It's structural. And I think it's time that we kept saying that and saying, there's no accident here. This is about prejudice. It's about discrimination. It definitely is. The white working class now, the last people that you can legally discriminate against, you can laugh at all day long, make awful discriminatory memes about us, and nobody has a problem with that.
Lisa McKenzie, you're right. I could talk to you all day, honestly. I feel like laughing, I feel like crying, I feel like hugging you. My boy's going through this at the moment. You know, my lad is going to university at the moment. He came back from Manchester the weekend, and he basically said to me, I've worked out, for me to get in, I need to just do the equivalent of like when a British boxer went to Vegas in the 50s, and you got to kill him to win. He's going to have to get A star, because he said, I'm a white lad. They're not interested in lads like me. Unless I get the best grades possible, you're fighting against the system the entire time. But Lisa, I'm being told we've got to move on. I could talk to you till Christmas, but I'm being told we can't. Lisa McKenzie, always an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Don. Nigel Nelson, it's a serious, serious problem. And I'll go further and say we've taught in our schools for so long that white working class people are a problem. They're racist. The country's racist. These are the people that fought wars. These are people that rebuilt the countries, and their descendants now are being treated like scum. That's what I think.
OK. Well, first of all, the idea of programmes like this are to get underrepresented groups into university. Now, the report that appeared this morning in the Daily Telegraph, neither Oxford nor Cambridge universities would comment, which I think is very silly of them. They actually should explain themselves. But if you look at the figures, that 70% of students at Oxford and Cambridge are white.
Yeah, but you putting all white people together in the way that they don't at universities. Disadvantaged ethnic minorities.
That's my point.
People from impoverished backgrounds. There's always a scholarship.
If you have programmes to get underrepresented groups in, they've more or less done that, given that 74% of the population are white British.
OK, well, we're going to come back to this one in the next hour. I completely think, well, I totally disagree with you. I completely think this is wrong, but we're going to revisit this one because I'm being told we've got to move on. Thank you very much indeed, Nigel Nelson. Our source at Oxford has outlined that UK students from lower income households were eligible for a non-repayable annual bursary of up to £6,150. And in a previous statement, the University of Cambridge has said Cambridge provides one of the most generous bursary support packages in the United Kingdom. More than £10 million of funding is available every year through the Cambridge bursary scheme to all students from low income households. Yeah, but the point is, when you get through for the interview process, the white people don't seem to make the grade. Now, moving on. The two Hampshire cops who handcuffed Henry Novak as he lay dying are now to be investigated by the police watchdog. That's next. However, here's your news headlines now. Slightly late, that's my fault. Sorry. Here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much. The top stories is now Andy Burnham, who's likely to become the next Prime Minister, is facing a funding gap of almost £5 billion if he's to meet the government's new defence spending commitments. Sir Keir Starmer's announced there would be an extra £15 billion for the armed forces over the next 4 years. But Treasury documents show only £10 billion has been found so far. As you've been hearing, 2 Hampshire police officers are under investigation for potential gross misconduct over the arrest and the handcuffing of stabbed student Henry Novak. The police watchdog says the officers may have failed to recognise he needed urgent medical help after he said he'd been stabbed and couldn't breathe. Elsewhere, the Home Secretary has banned asylum seekers from being housed in new-build homes after a backlash over plans for a development in Shropshire. It comes after more than 80 asylum seekers were set to move into a new development in Stoke Heath, which locals say they were told would be affordable housing. And Thomas Tuchel believes scars of previous setbacks will help England in their quest for World Cup glory, and revealed how his own penalty shootout pain has sharpened preparations. The Democratic Republic of Congo are their round of 32 opponents, and the level of expectation similar heading into the match as England's humiliating defeat to Iceland a decade ago. That game kicks off between the Three Lions and Congo at 5 p.m. Those are the latest headlines. For now, more from me at the top of the hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Good afternoon. Welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The wind's picking up for many of us through the night and first thing tomorrow morning. A bit of wet weather around, particularly across northern areas tonight from this area of low pressure. The isobars squeegeeing together as well. That's what's picking the winds up as that low approaches the northwest. Further south, been by and large a fine day and a fine evening to come with sunny spells for many. But the rain pushing in across Scotland, Northern Ireland, spreading into northern England, parts of North Wales before midnight, and then trickling south. Not a huge amount of rain for the gardeners, but some getting into the Midlands, southwest England by dawn. At the same time, it turns a bit drier across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it will turn gusty here. Quite a warm, humid night in the south. Temperatures holding up at 16 or 17 Celsius. Quite a grey, murky start in parts of the southwest as well. Further north, a fresh start, but blustery too, with showers packing in across western Scotland throughout the morning. For eastern Scotland, should get some shelter, so generally a dry start here. A few showers may be coming into Northern Ireland, but they'll be fizzing out pretty quickly. A cloudy start, different feel to compared to today across the south, with misty, murky conditions around the coast in the southwest, and quite breezy everywhere. Some rain and drizzle across southernmost counties of England. That should tend to pull away and disappear, all but from Kent by around lunchtime. And then we'll see sunny spells developing, the showers fading in western Scotland, still one or two in the far northeast, and staying wet and quite windy in Shetland. Otherwise, the wind's easing a little. Some sunny spells for the afternoon. Temperatures about average, but probably feeling quite warm across the southeast, where 26 or 27 is possible. Thursday evening is a fine summer's evening as the winds continue to ease down and most places stay dry. There's more sunshine to come. A bit of wet weather in the far northwest at times into the weekend, but otherwise quite a bit of sunshine and temperatures just rising a little as well.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A78 northbound Barrissey off-slip to the A759 is closed due to ongoing roadworks, causing delays. Traffic is disrupted both ways on the A483 between Landilo and Fairfatch due to a multi-vehicle incident with local diversions in place. Meanwhile, on the M25 southbound at Leicester near junction 21, lane restrictions are causing 2 lanes to be diverted. And on the trains, major disruption is reported on the Elizabeth line between Reading, Heathrow terminals and London Paddington, and similarly on Great Western Railway services between Reading and London Paddington. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. It's 20 to 4. You with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the police watchdogs today launched a gross misconduct investigation into 2 officers over the death of Henry Novak. The 18-year-old, of course, was handcuffed and arrested as he lay dying on the pavement after being fatally stabbed in Southampton, instead receiving first aid. Now, in a statement, the Independent Office for Police Conduct has said the serving of gross misconduct notices does not necessarily mean that disciplinary proceedings will follow. At the end of our investigation, we will decide whether any officers should face disciplinary hearings. Well, let's get my next guest in now. I'm delighted to be joined by the former Scotland Yard detective, Mike Neville. Mike, welcome to the show. Always a pleasure to have your company. When you look back at that video, the video that just captivated and engrossed and, let's face it, horrified the world, I think we're allowed to ask serious questions about what happened that night. We've been over a lot of it, you and I together, about the fact the police seem so frozen in the headlights of being called racist. They seem to put that before their duty of care to the officer. Now, this is an ongoing inquiry, but in your experience, as an officer who's dealt with a lot of these situations, do you think something went badly wrong in this case?
It did go badly wrong. The officers defied common sense. They didn't listen to somebody who was very seriously injured and subsequently died. He was left for minutes begging basically for help. And that's all the things when you sign up to be a police officer, you sign up to help people. But my concern here, Martin, is it's right that the officers, if needed, should face disciplinary proceedings. However, it is not them who has brainwashed people for decades. That racism, i.e. in this case knocking somebody's turban off, is worse than stabbing somebody and killing them. This has been politicians and chief officers. If you look at Hampshire Constabulary, it's the chief constable and the Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner who signed off the race action plan, which says that you treat people differently according to their race. And it's also the chief constable and no doubt the Police and Crime Commissioner who agreed the training where officers felt that they were being basically told to shut up, listen, and being their heads filled that racism is the worst crime in the world. So whilst these officers are right, as I say, we don't need sacrificial lambs. We need wholesale change of the way that the police deal with crimes and start to treat people the same, whether they're black, white, gay or straight.
Mike Neville, I wonder if this story has a great deal of overlap with a story I just did a moment ago. I don't know if you overheard it, but there's a banning, basically, of white kids from getting top bursaries at top universities because there seems to be a systemic imbibement now in this feeling that white kids, well, you've never had life so easy, despite the evidence showing us the opposite. Kids are taught from the cradle to the grave now that white people are a problem. They should be ashamed of their nation. They should be ashamed of themselves. And that's the same environment that these coppers learn to police in.
It's, well, exactly right. And as a former grammar school boy, and the Labour Party, of course, your guest there can justify this, shut down the grammar schools that white working class lads like me achieved in. But these police officers are in an even worse situation. This brainwashing did not start when they went to the police training school or the university. It started, as you said, from school. We've got to, people like my age, we've got to look at these young officers and remember that we were not brainwashed like this by the left from the very moment we entered primary school. And these officers, these young officers have been taught that white people are racist. If you turn up to it, and they've been bombarded, if you turn up and a black person says this is a racist attack, the white person must be guilty. That's what their heads have been filled with. And that's the circumstances in which they find themselves. So it's very easy to judge, but we must take into account that those above should shoulder the responsibility for what they've done to this nation.
Can I ask you a question which I suspect will take us a year to answer? But, Mike, is it too late to do anything about this? Or are the tendrils now so far enmeshed in policing and academia that we've lost? Or do you still live in hope?
There's a lesson in history, Martin. After the Second World War, the Germans went through a denazification process. Surely we could look at how that was achieved in Germany, because Germany moved on to be a democratic state, particularly in the West, a decent place to be. How was that done? This woke cancer needs to be driven out, just as Nazism was driven out of the Germans.
Strong words, but I thank you for them. Mike Neville, thanks for joining us on the show. As ever, the former Scotland Yard detective. Mike Neville, thank you very much. Nigel Nelson, do you think there is a point here in meshing all these stories together? We've lost the plot.
I think you've got to start with actually where we are before moving on too far. So the situation here is what the watchdog is actually saying is that officers were called to a report of a crime. We're not talking about a race crime here. We're just talking about officers turning up to a crime. They are now being investigated for not providing the appropriate care.
Yeah, because they believe the liar.
Well, now you're leaping ahead to make a judgment. So at the moment, moment, yeah, well, you are, because, I mean, what the Independent Office of Police Conduct has been doing, they started off with the officers being witnesses.
You've seen the videos?
To the event. I have indeed.
They believe the liar, the murderer.
And it is... Well, we don't know that. What we saw in the video was that they did not, or appeared not to have given the appropriate level of care to Henry Novak, who had complained several times that he'd been stabbed and he couldn't breathe. But you're taking it one stage further at the moment. They're called to a crime. You don't know that those officers wouldn't have behaved the same way if it had been a burglary or something completely different. If it didn't have a racial element, it may well do. It may well do that the watchdog will find it does have a racial element to it, but we're not actually there yet.
You don't think, then, that despite the evidence that appalled the world, and despite manifest evidence of DEI, indoctrination, anti-racism, the police self-flagellating for decades about them being... You don't think any of that has had an impact?
The evidence that was appalling from the video was Henry Novak pleading for help because he'd been stabbed and instead being handcuffed.
Yeah, which he didn't
That's what we saw.
OK. All right, Nigel Nelson, plenty more on that later in the show. Now, coming up next, fish and chip shops are being battered by yet another fresh crisis, this time with a dire warning. Britain is heading for a mushy pea shortage. Meanwhile, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's a forecast to help we get some much-needed sun in your European destinations.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Mixed weather across southern Europe at the moment. Quite a few showers for Italy, some thunderstorms, breezy through central parts of the Mediterranean, as well as the Canary Islands and Madeira. But an emerging hot spell is expected through Portugal and for south and west Spain. Temperatures of 40 Celsius for Lisbon. Unusually hot for this location. Here are the showers for Italy, but they ease during Friday and into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
And it's Father's Day. I don't know if my dad's up yet. If you are, happy Father's Day.
He's already texted.
Is he?
He's tuning in.
Mr. Reaper, good morning to you.
Sunday, well, speaking of Sunday lunches, he'll be having a roast pork joint later, courtesy of myself.
Good.
Cards and gifts are a big part of the day, of course, but it's also important to remember that there is more to it than that.
Yeah, because it's not just about one day, is it? Actually, it's like, what do dads do? And healthy fathers, a healthy sort of father-son, father-daughter relationship builds strong families, builds strong communities and helps build a strong country, actually.
Well, that is why mentoring the next generation matters more than ever. So take a little extra time today. Make sure you do, to appreciate not just the fathers or the grandfathers or the uncles out there, but any strong father figure that you may have.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Welcome back to Breakfast, 25 minutes past 6. And breaking news this morning, the TV presenter Jeremy Clarkson has revealed that he's been diagnosed with aggressive prostate cancer in an emotional video.
In the scenes, he's telling his co-stars Caleb Cooper and Charlie Ireland, his land agent and his farm manager, and they're both devastated, as you can imagine. You know, it's a huge bombshell to drop on them. He's only 66. He's made no secrets that he's maybe not lived the healthiest lifestyle. After the heart problems, he bemoans having to eat Greek yogurt and kale and whatnot. But following this, I think he's going to have a complete lifestyle overhaul even further, and just fingers crossed the treatment proves effective.
GB News, the People's Channel. Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Hello there, Emily and Tom. Yes, some breaking news in the last few moments from Kensington Palace regarding our future king, Prince George of Wales, the oldest son of the Prince and Princess of Wales. The short statement from Kensington Palace reads, Kensington Palace can confirm that Prince George will attend Eton College in September. That news just coming in from the royal household in the last few moments. This clearly is, well, perhaps not surprising news for those in royal circles. Eton College, the most prestigious school, arguably in the country, educating 20 prime ministers and, of course, Prince George's own father and uncle, Prince William and Prince Harry, as well as 2 Dukes of Gloucester, the Duke of Kent and Prince Michael of Kent as well. So that confirmation just coming in from Kensington Palace, £63,000 a year it costs to send a child to Eton College.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Well, good back time is 3:51. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, brace yourselves, because fish and chip shops face a potential battering once again, amid worries this time of a mushy pea shortage. That's because the extremely hot weather, crop harvests are expected to be delayed, rising the cost of goods such as potatoes and peas, of course, essential core ingredients for every great British chippy. Well, here to speak with us now is the president of the National Federation of Fish Fryers. Every time I say that, thank God this job title exists, Andrew Crook. Andrew, it's coming at you left, right and centre now. It's mushy peas that are going to get the job.
Public concern. We do think our suppliers will have it in hand, but we do need mushy peas. It makes it a nutritionally balanced meal. It's one of your 5 a day. One of my friends in Yorkshire calls it Yorkshire caviar. It's a fantastic addition to fish and chips. And as a traditionalist, I like eating mushy peas.
And do you remember that famous story, of course, Peter Mandelson, formerly of this parish, who once thought mushy peas were avocado?
Well, they're better than avocado. They're a superfood. They're great to eat. They're full of vitamins, and they just complete the fish and chip meal. I've got a portion here ready to show you, so we've no shortage just of yet.
Let's have a look, mate. I'll tell you the way I take them all day long. Loads of vinegar, black pepper, and if I'm feeding fruity, a little bit of mint sauce. How's that grab you?
Yeah, well, I've minted peas. I was at a place, we launched the Fish and Chip Awards yesterday in Whitby, and they added a bit of pepper to them as well, which was nice. So there's all sorts of ways of doing them. But I'll always say is keep getting your mushy peas with your fish and chips.
Yeah, we've got to make sure everyone keeps going to the nearest chippy, get stuck in. And I find, actually, when it's really hot, Andrew, fish and chips still work. You just feel like you're at the seaside.
Yeah, but people tend to not eat it inland, so I was really quiet last week, but all my friends at the course were absolutely heaving, so I don't know, there's something psychological about being near the water, but people love fish and chips. It's part of the national heritage, and I'm sure people will keep coming for them. It's a great meal, and I'm such a privilege to be part of the industry. It's such a great industry to work in. We proved yesterday we had 70 people gave up the day off or came away from work to launch the awards. It wasn't even the final of the awards, it was just announcing the start of it. So, yeah, it's a great industry and so supportive, and long may it continue.
Andrew Crook, thank you for the work you do. And you're my kind of nutritionist. Mushy peas make a balanced diet. One of your 5 a day. It's absolutely beautiful. The president of the National Federation of Fish Fryers, Andrew Crook. Thank you very much indeed. Nigel Nelson, are you a pea man or a soft southern bean man?
No, I'm a pea man. No, I mean mushy peas must go with your cotton chips. No question about it. But I can see there might be a shortage. I mean, I've noticed that no fresh peas in the supermarkets this year, so I'm imagining that's going to cause a knock-on effect to the mushy pea industry.
Do you like gravy on top of peas as well? I do.
Absolutely.
Oh, right, I think we're off to tea tonight. Thank you very much indeed, Nigel. Now, asylum seekers handed newly built £250,000 migrant mansions coming just the same day as Shabana Mahmood promised to get tough on asylum seekers. It's proof once again the lunatics have taken over the asylum system. We'll be live from Stoke Neath, where those mansions are. That's next.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office. here on GB News. The wind's picking up for many of us through the night and first thing tomorrow morning. A bit of wet weather around, particularly across northern areas tonight from this area of low pressure. The isobars squeeging together as well. That's what's picking the winds up as that low approaches the northwest. Further south, been by and large a fine day and a fine evening to come with sunny spells for many. But the rain pushing in across Scotland, Northern Ireland, spreading into northern England, parts of North Wales before midnight, and then trickling south. Not a huge amount of rain for the gardeners, but some getting into the Midlands, southwest England by dawn. At the same time, it turns a bit drier across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it will turn gusty here. Quite a warm, humid night in the south. Temperatures holding up at 16 or 17 Celsius. Quite a grey, murky start in parts of the southwest as well. Further north, a fresh start, but blustery too, with showers packing in across western Scotland throughout the morning. For eastern Scotland, should get some shelter, so generally a dry start here. A few showers may be coming into Northern Ireland, but they'll be fizzing out pretty quickly. A cloudy start, different feel to compared to today across the south, with misty, murky conditions around the coast in the southwest, and quite breezy everywhere. Some rain and drizzle across southernmost counties of England. That should tend to pull away and disappear, all but from Kent by around lunchtime. And then we'll see sunny spells developing. The showers fading in western Scotland. Still one or two in the far northeast, and staying wet and quite windy in Shetland. Otherwise, the wind's easing a little. Some sunny spells for the afternoon. Temperatures about average, but probably feeling quite warm across the southeast, where 26 or 27 is possible. Thursday evening is a fine summer's evening as the winds continue to ease down and most places stay dry. There's more sunshine to come. A bit of wet weather in the far northwest at times into the weekend, but otherwise quite a bit of sunshine and temperatures just rising a little as well.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for all of you who listen to GB News Radio.
Whether you're at home or on the go, you're making us Britain's news channel and Britain's radio station.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A78 northbound Barrissey off-slip to the A759 is closed for maintenance. On the A483 in Wales, an incident between Llandanialonan and Fairfax has caused diversions. In Leicester, the M1 southbound at junction 21 has lane restrictions due to signage issues, with lane 4 closed and lanes 1 and 2 diverted. And on the trains, there is disruption on the Elizabeth line between Reading, Heathrow terminals and London Paddington, as well as Great Western Railway services between Reading and London Paddington. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's a great British giveaway Golden Summer Celebration. Your chance to win 2 fantastic prizes. There's an incredible £60,000 in tax-free cash. Plus, you'll also get your hands on a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
It's a surprise.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. Welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting for you all the way until 6 p.m. A cracking show awaits, and here's what's on today's menu.
The Minister is really serious about protecting young women and girls. Does he agree with me and Reform UK that every single illegal migrant coming to this country should be detained, not allowed to claim asylum and then deported? Yeah.
Asylum seekers handed newly built £250,000 migrant mansions. Lee Anderson reveals nurses were evicted from an HMO in his constituency to be replaced by a Pakistani asylum seeker who went on to rape a vulnerable woman. Illegals chucking their passports into the Channel, and all of this coming on the very same day when Shabana Mahmood was promised to get tough on asylum seekers. Is Britain sitting on an asylum seeker time bomb? And failure from the judge who spared 3 teenage boys prison over the rape and filming of 2 young girls in Fordingbridge. We'll bring you all the very latest on that harrowing case. And white working-class kids are the least likely of all demographics in Britain to go to university, and yet today it's been revealed they are barred from scholarships to Oxbridge universities. Has our woke establishment thrown an entire generation of white kids on the scrap heap? And woke Cambridgeshire County Council has followed the lead of Oxfordshire by banning patriotic locals from hoisting St George's or Union flags on lampposts. I'll be joined by Cambridge's phantom flag hoister, the tree surgeon, Bill Crotty, who blasts this is anti-English nonsense by a council who hates anything English. And Keir Starmer has caved into the European Union once again, this time by reducing university fees for EU students from 38 grand to £9,500 per year. Now, that means that EU students will pay the same price as Brits, and that could flood our universities, push up grades and squeeze out native students. Once again, as Keir Starmer put Brussels before Britain. And also the 2 Hampshire cops who handcuffed Henry Novak as he lay dying and believed his murderer's lies are to be investigated by the police watchdog. Did the police officers' fears of being called racist come first, while saving Henry Novak's life came a distant second? And that's all coming up in your next hour. An astonishing case today at PMQs. The Reform MP for Sutton in Ashfield, Lee Anderson, put a question to Keir Starmer, a constituent of his constituents' nurses. He claims were evicted from a house of multiple occupancy, and their place was taken by a Pakistani asylum seeker who then famously went on to rape a vulnerable 18-year-old girl in the park. When Lee Anderson mentioned that in Parliament earlier, the chamber fell silent. I'll be joined by Lee in the studio in this hour for a truly astonishing case, and one in many people's minds sums up broken Britain. We'll also be live from Stoke Heath, the location of what they're now calling the Migrant Mansion Street. £250,000 luxury homes being given to asylum seekers in a hamlet of less than 300, with cows at the end of the gardens and a children's playground that now sits empty. Get in touch usual ways, gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so, or scan the QR code on your screens now. But enough from me, here's your headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you very much and good afternoon. The top stories. Kemi Badenoch has accused Sir Keir Starmer of leaving his successor with a defence funding black hole and claims he was too weak to cut welfare when he had the chance. Well, the clash comes after Sir Keir Starmer promised an extra £15 billion for the armed forces over the next 4 years. But Treasury figures show the government has only identified £10 billion of the money. At Prime Minister's questions earlier today, Kemi Badenoch said the numbers don't add up and challenged the Prime Minister over who will pay the missing billions.
The Prime Minister has only increased spending by 0.01%. We can count. The generals can count, the Kremlin can count. His plan doesn't add up. How can the Prime Minister possibly stand there and say that this is enough?
Sir Keir Starmer hit back, accusing the Conservatives of weakening Britain's defences when they were in power.
Their record is cutting defence spending. My record is raising it to £300 billion and rising. Their record is cutting frigates by a quarter, cutting mine hunters by a half, and leaving 47 of 49 defence programmes delayed or over budget. My record is the biggest boost to defence investment since the 1980s. Their record is missing army recruitment targets every year for 14 years. We've given our armed force the biggest pay rise for 20 years and increased defence funding by £15 billion a year. That's a record I'm proud to stand on.
2 Hampshire police officers are under investigation for potential gross misconduct and over the arrest and handcuffing of stabbed student Henry Novak. The Independent Office for Police Conduct says the officers were the first to arrive at the scene late on the 3rd of December last year. The watchdog says they may have failed to recognise Henry needed urgent medical help after he said he'd been stabbed and couldn't breathe. It's also examining the decision to arrest and handcuff him rather than provide immediate first aid. One officer is also being investigated over whether they appeared to dismiss Henry when he said he'd been stabbed. Elsewhere, millions of households in England, Scotland and Wales will pay more for energy from today as Ofgem raises the price cap by 13%. The average gas and electricity bill will now rise to £1,862 a year. The regulator says suppliers faced higher wholesale costs during the US and Israel's war with Iran. The cap limits what suppliers can charge per unit of energy, but it doesn't put a hard limit on a household's total bill. Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood has banned asylum seekers from being housed in new build homes after a backlash over plans for a development in Shropshire. It comes after more than 80 asylum seekers were set to move into 20 new build homes in the small village of Stoke Heath. The homes are reported to be worth around £250,000 each. Locals say they were told the development would be used for affordable housing. The Home Office says the Home Secretary has now introduced robust processes to make sure that new build sites like Stoke Heath can never be considered again. And last month was provisionally the warmest June in England since records began, as well as the second warmest for the UK, thanks to the recent heat wave that brought a run of sweltering days and nights. The average temperature in England across the month was 17.1 degrees, beating the previous June record of 16.9 set last year, according to figures published by the Met Office. It means England's top 3 warmest Junes since data began in 1884 have all occurred this decade, with 2026 in first place, last year in second place, and 2023 in third place. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Here's the finance.
Taking the ups and downs in our stride. Stilts Home Lifts sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
$1.33 and €1.17. The price of gold is £3,096 and the FTSE 100 is at 10,462 points.
GB News Finance Report, brought to you by Stilts Home Lifts.
Thank you very much indeed, Tatiana. Our top story this afternoon, Sir Keir Starmer and Reform UK MP Lee Anderson clashed at PMQs today over whether illegal immigrants should be deported from the United Kingdom.
In Ashfield, 4 workers, including 2 nurses, were kicked out of their HMO, and Serco put 4 illegal migrants in this HMO. One of these illegal migrants was a Pakistani national. He went on to rape a young girl, a vulnerable young girl, on a park in Ashfield. He's now doing 14 years in prison. This was a monster allowed into this country by this awful government.
Well, Lee Anderson will join me in the studio later in this hour to go through that horrific case. And that comes as the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood today has announced that newly built houses will no longer be used to house asylum seekers. Well, let's see if that's true, because the move follows reports that 83 immigrants were due to be housed in newly built luxury properties on a Shropshire estate in Stoke Heath that's now been dubbed Migrant Street. Let's now speak with the parish councillor of Stoke-upon-Tern, and that is Mark Gilbert. Mark, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. This case has absolutely captivated and horrified our viewers and listeners. And I wanted to ask you for a bit of clarity on these properties, like how long have they been there? Was it true they were for social housing? And when did you find out about this, that the asylum seekers were coming to your community?
Yeah, hi, Martin. Yeah, just to give you a bit of context in the area, this is a rural area. Shropshire is incredibly rural, and we're very lucky to live in the area. These properties have been built by a number of different companies. There's been issues with regard to the solvency of those businesses. And some of those properties would have been used for social housing, which is very much something that we were looking for use. In this part of the world, like most rural communities, there is a limit to what properties are available and what's available on the market, and these properties would have helped that significantly. In terms of when did we find out about it, we found out about it 2 weeks ago as the parish council from Mark Pritchard, who's the Wrekin MP. And obviously he brought his question to the PMQs, and that was the first we knew about it. Since then, the parish council, my colleagues on the parish council, bearing in mind we're volunteers, our time has been taken over by obviously everything that's going on in the background with regard to people's concerns, nerves, worries. And so we have been quite lucky that Mark Pritchard has worked very closely with us as a parish council. We've had lots of meetings, and we're progressing things. But tomorrow evening we've got a meeting with the residents locally as well. So more will come out after that, I should imagine.
OK, Mog, our reporter Alex Armstrong is down there, and just so people can get a clear view, I mean, for starters, they're the kind of houses that most people can only dream of owning. Let's be frank, they're beautiful. They're a beautiful new build house. It just seems astonishing they're being handed to asylum seekers. That's the first thing. And in terms of the context of your community, I understand the locals are calling this a hamlet. You can see there a disused children's playground. There are cows in fields at the end of the gardens here. To dump 83 asylum seekers on a community of 300 seems ill thought out, and it just feels like the wrong place.
Well, your last bit you just said, it's the wrong place. Well, let's just give you a bit more of a context of where that is in the country. In terms of most people, if you said to them, where's Stoke Heath, a couple of days ago, they wouldn't have a clue where Stoke Heath is. So Stoke Heath is a hamlet. The nearest big town to Stoke Heath is Market Drayton to the north. And then further along, we've obviously got the major town of Shrewsbury down the road from there. Well, I say down the road, a good 15 miles. Opposite this Dutton Close is a farming area. It's a very rural area. There is a very well-known racehorse trainer who operates across the road from this development. It's a very nice area to live. Dutton Close itself is a beautiful place. It's a lovely area, but it has been blighted by the fact that these properties have been built over a number of years now, and they haven't been completed for whatever reason. As I say, there has been issues with the builder. There have been issues with obviously the connections to the utilities. So yeah.
OK, Mark, but fast forward to now. So presumably at this point, Serco, the government, has stepped in. Where the private market couldn't step up, and has bailed out the owners, bought the accommodation, and without anybody knowing in the area, decided to stuff 83 asylum seekers into them. Locals have been horrified. They've been telling us they're afraid of their children. The playground there, look, amidst this luxury estate, will no doubt now go totally unused. On an emotional, visceral point, Margie, but you must feel completely betrayed by Serco, by the Home Office.
Yeah, we are betrayed. We have been betrayed. We've been not consulted. At the very least, you would expect that the Home Office would have had a conversation with the MP, Mark Pritchard. No, that never happened. Did Shropshire County Council come to us as a parish council? Were they aware? How much did they know? We're still waiting for those answers. But the most important thing to bear in mind, and this is the key thing, who would have thought that putting asylum seekers in a place where there are There's no bus service. We've been fighting for bus services on a parish council now for a number of years. There is no bus service. There is a major road called the Chester Road, the A41. That's the nearest major road, trunk road. It's an incredibly busy road. It's not safe to cross, certainly if you've got a family. If you wanted to walk into Market Drayton to go to the shops, it's over an hour's walk. How are you going to get back from that? You're going to need taxis. You're going to need all these other things. The infrastructure, quite frankly, Martin, isn't there. And that's why Mark Pritchard, our MP, has used that as the main point. And if they're doing it across the country, someone needs to deal with this.
Mark Gilbert, thank you for coming on and just giving us a bit more context, because it's just a complete mystery to our viewers and listeners how this is happening. And I think actually, having heard more from you, it's an even bigger mystery. In fact, it's a complete and utter farce. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, the Parish Councillor of Stoke-upon-Tern, Mark Gilbert. Back to the studio now, I'm joined in Westminster by our chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster, and by GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Catherine, I'm going to start with you first. This is a huge embarrassment for the Home Office, for the Home Secretary, for Shabana Mahmood, coming on the same day as the asylum clampdown, acting tough on all of this. And they can say all they like. Late last night, they said new houses should never house asylum seekers, but they are.
Yes, I mean, Shabana Mahmood has plans that sound pretty hardcore, pretty tough. A lot of her Labour MPs do not like them. And the line from the Home Office is, as you've said, new homes should never house asylum seekers. Also goes on to say, earlier this year, the Home Secretary introduced robust processes to ensure new build sites like Stoke Heath can never be considered again. So, maybe not in the future, but the evidence is here now, and people clearly very upset because, as you say, these are beautiful homes for young British families. There's a massive housing crisis, and the idea that people that have broken into the country illegally being put here in an area with nothing around it, you can understand why locals feel that this is absolutely outrageous. But the Home Office just wants to get shot of people, doesn't it? And locals are invariably upset.
Nigel Nelson, this is the point I've been making on this channel for a couple of years minimum, but certainly when you look at this location here, we just had it explained to us by a parish council. There is not even a bus service. There's no way of anybody who's put in there to get around unless, I don't know, the taxpayer also gives them Ubers or Motability cars. I mean, we don't know. It could yet get worse. It's the wrong place. It's the wrong development. And I do not believe for a minute that they couldn't get people on British council housing lists in those properties who wouldn't rip their arms off. We hear about waiting lists for council houses, especially family homes like that. They're as long as your arm. In some parts of the country, decades. This is completely and utterly numbskulled.
Well, the more we hear about it, it rather depends on why they built the homes there in the first place. If it was so dangerous and you can't get into the town in less than an hour, major road there, what are they doing building the houses there? Then we hear
presumably because well-off families who have cars, who attend schools, don't depend upon...
What Mark Gilbert just said to us from the Parish Council was that they're originally designated as social housing.
A portion of them.
They've been empty for a year, so why weren't they used for social housing? That is a question for the local authority. And the final thing is, if they're not being used for anything, is it not better that they're used for something, even if we're talking about asylum seekers, than just to lie there empty?
Do you actually believe?
Well, rather than hotel, rather than put people in hotels.
Do you actually believe that with a bit of sensible, joined-up thinking, those homes there, those dream homes, couldn't have been filled by people on waiting lists around the United Kingdom,
exactly,
rather than people getting off a dinghy?
No,
Come on, mate.
I agree with you absolutely there. What they should be, if they were set aside for social housing, what they should have had in there is council tenants on the current housing waiting list, which is the point the Home Office makes, that new builds shouldn't be used for this purpose. The question is, why did it happen? Why did they not? Why is it not used for social housing?
I'll tell you why it didn't happen, and I'll tell you very easily. And that's because there is an obligation, a duty, to house asylum seekers, all of them, who come here, and the government keeps saying to people like Catherine Forster, Chris Hope, all of the journalists in Britain, we will empty hotels by the end of this government. If they're going to empty hotels, they've got to go somewhere. Rather than stopping the boats, rather than stopping the problem, they're shoving it all around the country. That's precisely what's happening here. They're buying up anything they can, even if it's clearly as inappropriate as this, Catherine.
Well, yes, and I mean, the government would say they've saved £500 million recently on the costs of hotel accommodation. Clearly, that's a very inefficient use of taxpayers' money, putting people up in hotels, but they have got to go somewhere. But new houses, really? I think, you know, we need to reduce the pull factors that are bringing people from a safe, prosperous country, i.e. France, that have brought people across the whole of Europe to get here. And one of those pull factors is get put up in a hotel and now perhaps get put up in a very nice, brand new home.
Let's face it, a dream home. Catherine Forster, thank you very much. Nigel Elsa, thank you very much. Now, Home Office spokesperson has said this. New homes should never house asylum seekers. They should never, but they're not saying they will never. Read that again. New homes should never house asylum seekers. Earlier this year, the Home Secretary introduced robust processes to ensure new build sites like Stoke Heath can never be considered again. Moving on to our next story now. British families have seen the largest drop in wealth across the entire rich world since the pandemic, and that's according to the Union Bank of Switzerland. The wealth of average Brits has fallen by over 20% over the last 5 years and is the worst among the 37 countries surveyed. Well, here to talk with me now is the political commentator and a statistician, great friend of the show, Jamie Jenkins. Jamie, always a pleasure and never a chore. Here we go again. Things are getting worse for the Brits. What's going on?
Yeah, good afternoon, Martin. So it's quite damning, this one, isn't it? And we've seen one of the sharpest falls, as you pointed out there, in wealth in the developed world. And when we talk about wealth, what we're talking about pretty much is what housing people have got, what savings, inventions, investments, pension pots and things. So that's what we're defining as wealth. It's not just income. And one of the reasons for this decline that we've seen over the last 5 years is partly to do with the huge inflation that we've seen and our kind of energy policy and the shocks that we have with our energy policy compared to many other countries, for example, like the US, that inflation has eroded the value of a lot of the wealth in the UK. Because if you look at what wealth we had in 2020 and compare that to 2025, the amount of the wealth could purchase, if you've got that wealth, it's a lot less. So it's quite damning. And I think, for me, when you look at the highlight of that, why are we such an exposing part of this? We've got one of the highest household debt burdens across the developed world as well. I think it's 20% debt burden compared to gross wealth, which is much higher than the likes of Germany, France and Italy.
And I wonder, actually, the report mentions that we have the highest energy prices in all of these countries, which, of course, has a huge draining effect on family wealth, but also it could get worse. We're hearing at the moment there could be capital gains tax increases to align it with your tax rates. And not only is that bad for people who choose to remain here, but Jamie Jenkins, the richest, might just clear off and leave.
And that is the part of the problem, because when you take an average wealth, if people do leave the country, that obviously leaves the wealth that you've got within the nation. And we've seen, haven't we, the figures that we've had in recent years, about 9,500 millionaires left in 2024. Projected, I think the forecast was around 16,500 last year. And as millionaires leave, the Labour Party's ideology as well, you know, we keep taxing and taxing and taxing. If they leave, getting zero of money is nothing, is it, when you compare to, say, getting a percentage of the money that they've got in this country? And what will we get under Andy Burnham, I suppose, is the question. Will wealth tax be coming? There's always been talk from the Green Party, and he's probably going to move Labour more to the left. Wealth taxes has always been talked a little bit about. That will encourage more people to leave. But remember, Martin, with a wealth tax, a lot of the wealth that people have, especially in Britain, because we've got a higher percentage of our wealth tied up in assets like houses. So when you have wealth taxes, if it's in a house, well, you can't access that money. So that's the critical thing, really, that this is quite a damning survey that we're seeing. And ultimately, I'm concerned that if we go down the route of trying to tax wealth, we're just going to push more and more people out of the UK abroad.
OK, James Jiggins, we have to leave it there. Thank you for your time, as ever. Now, Paul Donovan, the chief economist at UBS Global Wealth, has said this. The UK had a brief period of notably higher inflation than Europe did. You had a couple of years of quite high inflation, partly because of the various peculiarities of our energy pricing structure. Now, still to come, the judge who sentenced 3 teenage boys for rape failed to take their crimes seriously enough. And also, Keir Starmer has caved into the European Union, this time by reducing university fees for European Union students. Will that push British students out of those places? That's next here on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Welcome back. Your time is 4:28 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the Court of Appeal has heard that detention was the only appropriate sentence for the 3 15-year-old boys who were spared jail after raping 2 girls in Fordingbridge in Hampshire. Tom Little, KC, for the Attorney General, said that this was due to the serious nature and extent of the offending. And I'm joined in the studio in Westminster by GB News' national reporter, Will Godley. Will, a very concerning case, brings up to speed.
Well, yeah, I was in the Court of Appeal earlier. All these arguments heard there, of course. It was referred to the Court of Appeal after Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, found that the sentences these 3 teenagers received was unduly lenient. So let's just remind ourselves of what they were sentenced for. So 3 teenage boys sentenced for a combined 10 counts of rape and 7 indecent images offences relating to 2 separate victims. 2 of the boys, now aged 15 but 14 at the time committed 2 rapes on 2 different girls, one in November 2024, the second in January 2025. And that third boy, now 14 years old, was convicted of encouraging that second attack. But all 3 of them were spared prison. The judge handed them a youth rehabilitation order, said he wanted to avoid criminalising these children unnecessarily. But today, in the Court of Appeal, we heard that detention was the only appropriate sentence. And Tom Little, KC for the Attorney General, said the judge sentencing them back in May said his approach was fundamentally flawed, that he misapplied relevant principles, which led to unduly lenient sentences, that the judge's assessment of harm and culpability was fundamentally flawed, and that he simply failed to properly grapple with the seriousness of the offending, saying that had the judge properly assessed the seriousness of the offences, he could only reasonably have concluded that the lengthy sentences of detention were required. Now, these 3 teenage boys weren't in the Court of Appeal today, but lawyers representing them were, and defending them, they all said more or less that the judge had the correct approach in sentencing them, and the sentences they received were correct, pointing out that his approach was individualistic, looking at how one of the boys had ADHD, another had an incredibly low IQ. And speaking in the Court of Appeal today, Claire Wade, KC for one of the boys, said that the sentences the judge handed down provides the most effective way, Martin, of protecting women and girls in future by preventing future rehabilitation, future offending. Edward Henry, KC, said the sentences prioritise rehabilitation for the sake of society as a whole, and argued that a custodial sentence would disrupt or destroy a rehabilitation trajectory. But it's up now to these 3 judges in the Court of Appeal whether this was in fact an unduly lenient sentence, and whether or not they should be revised. They're due to make a decision tomorrow.
Well, Godly, an excellent summary of a very concerning case. Thank you for joining us in the studio in Westminster. Now let's move on. Keir Starmer is reportedly considering offering European Union students lower tuition fees as part of a wider Brexit reset talk with Brussels. Now, the proposal could allow European Union students to pay the same fees as United Kingdom students, saving them thousands of pounds. But could this leave British universities facing a significant funding shortfall, and more to the point, raise fresh questions about whether British students will be pushed out? I'm joined in the studio by GBNews' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Nigel, this is part of Keir Starmer's legacy. The final chat, we understand, at the G7 in Evian with Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President. And it's a great deal for Brussels. It's a fantastic deal for Brussels. It means that European Union students coming to Britain will have their annual fees dropped from 38 grand to the same as British students at £9,535. Great for Brussels. I put it to you, terrible for Britain on two counts. First of all, £500 million in taxation lost to universities. Secondly, it means there'll be much more competition for places, and that is bad news for Brits, and especially the same demographic we keep talking about, white working class kids who are at the bottom of the pile. No, shafted.
No, it could be a great deal. The deal is not completed yet. This is part of the negotiation. It goes along with the youth mobility scheme, which originally Keir Starmer was not very keen on. I never understood why, because it was quite a good scheme. He is now. So it was good. It's good for us. It means that our youngsters can go and study or work in Europe, and that must be a good thing to have that kind of interaction.
Twice as many Europeans came to Britain as Brits ever went to Europe.
Well,
consistently every year.
You still give the opportunity for our youngsters to be able to go over there. That must be a good thing. On this particular one, all we've got back to is the situation we were in before Brexit, where European students did pay the same as British students. There's no reason why they should start taking places away from British students.
Of course there is.
But the point is that the prize at the end of this is 5 billion to the economy.
It's the basic concept of supply and demand. If you suddenly cut the cost of a product from 38 grand a year to 9.5 grand a year...
38 is by far the top end. I mean, it's usually much less than that.
If you suddenly offer cut price deals to Europeans, Do you think more or less are going to come here, Nigel Nelson?
Well, there should be more. I mean, the same way universities were taking a lot of European students in before Brexit. That didn't stop British students from getting into universities.
But if there's a finite amount of places,
of course,
and it's suddenly a quarter of the price for Europeans, it's clear what's going to happen.
But you've got this idea that suddenly thousands of students will come over from Europe to go and study in Britain. Why should they?
Because it's a third of the price.
It's no different from going back to where we were prior to 2020, and the prize at the end of this is £5 billion to our economy, lower food prices because we get rid of border controls.
This report today says that Sir Keir Starmer will cost British universities £500 million a year. In the money that they're not getting from the extra tuition fee. It's a bad deal for British universities, which means it's a bad deal for British taxpayers, and it's a bad deal for British students because now 27 member states can apply for a finite number of places, pushing up the grades. And I tell you what, we've heard today about how they pride themselves on being diverse. It means Brits will be at the back of the queue, Nigel.
Well, it doesn't. And what has also happened with international students is they're not able to study here in the way that they used to. That's what's really cost universities a lot of money, because we've decided that to control immigration, we won't let their families in.
But we shouldn't let people's families in.
Well, this is fine, but you
I went to university again, didn't take me mum.
The point about there's no point that universities are arguing they're going to lose money out of this scheme when the government has made them lose money out of the previous one to control immigration.
OK, well, we'll have to agree to disagree once again. It's called Wednesdays. Thank you very much, Nigel Nelson. Now, still to come, woke Cambridgeshire County Council has followed the lead of Oxfordshire by banning patriotic locals from hoisting St George's or Union flags on lampposts during a World Cup. I'll be joined by Cambridge's phantom flag hoister, the tree surgeon Bill Crotty, who blasts this is anti-English nonsense by a council who hates anything English. That's next here on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The wind's picking up for many of us through the night and first thing tomorrow morning. A bit of wet weather around, particularly across northern areas tonight from this area of low pressure. The isobars squeeging together as well. That's what's picking the winds up as that low approaches the northwest. Further south, been by and large a fine day and a fine evening to come with sunny spells for many. But the rain pushing in across Scotland, Northern Ireland, spreading into northern England, parts of North Wales before midnight, and then trickling south. Not a huge amount of rain for the gardeners, but some getting into the Midlands, southwest England by dawn. At the same time, it turns a bit drier across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it will turn gusty here. Quite a warm, humid night in the south. Temperatures holding up at 16 or 17 Celsius. Quite a grey, murky start in parts of the southwest as well. Further north, a fresh start, but blustery too, with showers packing in across western Scotland throughout the morning. For eastern Scotland, should get some shelter, so generally a dry start here. A few showers may be coming into Northern Ireland, but they'll be fizzing out pretty quickly. A cloudy start, different feel to compared to today across the south, with misty, murky conditions around the coast in the southwest and quite breezy everywhere. Some rain and drizzle across southernmost counties of England. That should tend to pull away and disappear, all but from Kent by around lunchtime. And then we'll see sunny spells developing. The showers fading in western Scotland. Still one or two in the far northeast and staying wet and quite windy in Shetland. Otherwise, the wind's easing a little. Some sunny spells for the afternoon. Temperatures about average, but probably feeling quite warm across the southeast, where 26 or 27 is possible. Thursday evening is a fine summer's evening as the winds continue to ease down and most places stay dry. There's more sunshine to come. A bit of wet weather in the far northwest at times into the weekend, but otherwise quite a bit of sunshine and temperatures just rising a little as well.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. On the A78 northbound, the Barrissey off-slip to the A759 is closed due to essential maintenance. An incident on the A483 between Llandilo and Fairfatch causes local diversions both ways. In Leicester, southbound on the M1, junction 21, lane closures due to signs and signals issues, with one lane restricted and diversions affecting lanes 1 and 2. This is expected to clear shortly. and on the train's major disruption on the Elizabeth line between Reading, Heathrow terminals and London Paddington, as well as Great Western Railway services between Reading and London Paddington. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's 4:39. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, Cambridgeshire County Council has warned that flags attached to lampposts without planning permission will be removed. The council leader, Lucy Nett Singer, said although it was fantastic to see people wanting to support England during the World Cup, it must be done in a safe and, of course, an inclusive way. Let's now speak with the tree surgeon and the flag campaigner, Billy Crotty. Billy, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. You've been flying the flag proudly in this area for quite some time now. We've had you on the show before. Magnificent work. Suddenly, they're saying it's no longer inclusive. It's a World Cup, and they just seem to just not like the flag.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. It's the unliberal Liberal Democrats. That's who we're dealing with here. They make excuses up why we can't put the flags up, but we all know what it comes down to. They hate everything about the country, really. They hate everything about patriots. It's massive overreach as well, because there hasn't been any flags up around this area for ages. We was never going to leave them up. The Liberal Democrats, they organised it, that they was ripped down. We had highways sneaking in the night and with a cherry picker, rip them all down. Not really much concern for health and safety there, no road closures. Just turned up with a cherry picker, Gestapo-like action, whipped them all down, wouldn't give them back to us. So these flags have been down for ages. So I don't really see the point of this legal action. Wasting taxpayers' money, it's easier to spend money when it's not yours. That's how I see it anyway, Martin.
And Billy, you put hundreds of flags up, of course, along the A1198 last year. You think the policy is overkill. They've even now said that it's dangerous to put a ladder against a lamppost. Well, Billy, you've been doing that for years and you've had no problem.
We have, Martin, and I'll tell you another thing to disprove all that nonsense. I'm a tree surgeon, so I've got access to mutes and cherry pickers for my work. So I wonder if the Liberal Democrats would let us go out with a cherry picker and put them up. I bet they wouldn't. We know what it's about. But, I think you got to punish these people democratically now. We've done our work. We've had maximum impact. This nonsense, what they're doing now, is it's actually giving us more publicity. It's getting more people on our side. You're a great patriot yourself. I come on here last time, and I remember you took me. You're a man of your word. You said on that show, I'm so admirable of what you've done. I'll take you over the road, and you bought me a pint. And this country is full of people like you, Martin, and they can keep knocking us on the head. They can keep trying to spoil us, but they won't succeed. There's so many people who are proud of this country, and they will it'll carry on as well. And the more of these draconian actions they take, the more it's going to push people. It's emboldened people. I go around the village by me now, and there's flags on lampposts, not on lampposts, but on. People have gone to the trouble of buying flags. They put their own flagpoles up. You wouldn't have seen that. You wouldn't have seen that before the Raise the Colours campaign. So it's definitely emboldened people anyway.
OK, Billy Crotty, you almost got me standing up here singing God Save the King. Thank you for your kind words. And if you ever come down here again, mate, I'll buy you 2 pints. How's that grab you? Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks a lot.
Billy Crotty there, tree surgeon, flag campaigner, coming on the show today. Now, we've got a reply here from Cambridgeshire County Council who've imposed this ban, and they said this: what's important is that raising flags is done in a safe, inclusive way and with permission. While some might love to show a flag on their house or car, it's not appropriate to attach them to a public lamppost. We'll be taking down all the flags attached without permission. We are looking at ways to prevent this in the future. Now, before I'm joined in the studio by Lee Anderson, Nigel Nelson, let's get your reaction to this. during a World Cup, do these people never have a day off?
Oh, hang on. We know absolutely that Raise the Colours had absolutely nothing to do with the World Cup. So let's leave the World Cup out of it. When it comes down to taking the flags down, obviously Cambridge Council have every right to do so because the lampposts belong to them. The flags were put up without permission. What has happened in my area, in my village, which is covered in St George's flags, is the local police, the local authority and the parish council all agree that provided they don't cause a safety risk, those flags should be left up. And that's how I think it should be in future.
I don't think there's ever been a single situation in the history of Britain where a flag has suddenly swoops down.
Well, it might do.
And gone over a
it could come off a lamppost.
Or a cyclist
if it's by a road,
and suddenly taken them out and patriotic.
If it's by a road, the flag can come down. Some of our flags have fallen off, and if they cover a windscreen of a car, they would be dangerous. So it's fair enough if it looks as if
Which hasn't ever happened.
If it looks as if there might be a risk, well, you don't want it to happen, do you?
No.
If it looks like it's a risk, then you take them down.
Time on even tighter, lads. Anyway, thank you very much, Nigel Nelson. Coming up next, if he gets here, Lee Anderson joins me in the studio. Sir Keir Starmer and the Reform UK MP clashed today at PMQs of whether illegal immigrants should be deported immediately from the United Kingdom. But before that, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast of some of your top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Mixed weather across southern Europe at the moment. Quite a few showers for Italy, some thunderstorms, breezy through central parts of the Mediterranean, as well as the Canary Islands and Madeira. But an emerging hot spell is expected through Portugal and for south and west Spain. Temperatures of 40 Celsius for Lisbon. Unusually hot for this location. Here are the showers for Italy, but they ease during Friday and into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
The completion of the challenge, the Princess of Wales was met by her family, including the Prince of Wales and her 3 children.
Lovely. All right, let's talk to former Royal Butler Grant Harold. Grant, honestly, that little video there just seemed to say it all to me, because it was clearly all just off the cuff, not a prepared speech. She just came across as someone who really cares about what she does.
She does, and I mean, she's remarkable because, as you said, it was just suddenly announced last night that she'd done this, and not that I'm a huge expert in this, but it's quite a challenge. I actually know somebody that did it recently. I mean, I think you've got to walk about 23, 24 miles. You're climbing about up to, is it 9,000 feet? You're travelling over 500 miles. It's 3 highest peaks in the UK, Scotland, England, and Wales. I mean, it's a remarkable achievement.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
In his 23 years of service, Alan was deployed to a number of conflicts, including the Gulf War. He met his wife Tracy Ann when he returned to civilian life, and Alan is proud of his time in the forces.
The actual Gulf War, it was during this Scud missile sort of crisis, if you like, and I found that quite worrying because it was so random. If somebody points a rifle at you and intends to kill you, that's one thing. But these missiles were just fired into nowhere. One of the camps got hit. A lot of US servicemen got killed. And RAF regiment fellas went in to help. And the effects of war are clearly not nice. But if it was done for the right reasons, it had to be done.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
No, Cameron, so it's the first monarch ever to do this, then, isn't it? What's your take on what we've seen in the data here?
Well, Patrick, for GB News audiences, I spent 5 hours in financial briefings with all of these documents, so you don't have to go through them all, and we've assimilated them with my producer, Tom, this afternoon and evening for you. As you said, Patrick, at the start of your piece there, I think a lot of our audience are probably going to be wondering why £370 million, roughly, of their money is being spent on resurfacing a building, Buckingham Palace, which no monarch is unlikely to ever live in ever again. The money that the king surrenders the profits of from the Crown Estates to the Treasury in exchange for a percentage to fund the official duties, that percentage for almost a decade has been much higher.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. Time is 4:49. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, earlier on today, we saw Reform UK's chairman, Lee Anderson, criticise Labour during PMQs over their failure to tackle the immigration crisis. And Lee Anderson joins me now in the studio, alongside, of course, Nigel Nelson. Lee, you rose a question in Parliament earlier on, and you told the story of a constituent of yours and a case we covered here on GB News, a Pakistani rapist. You told the story that somebody was evicted to make way for him. It's incredible.
Yeah, I had a whistleblower contact me. I think it was last year, Martin. It was an estate agent whistleblower who contacted me to say, are you aware that the rapist, it was much publicised, this Pakistani asylum seeker rapist, are you aware that he was living in an HMO in Ashfield, which was previously being occupied by 4 workers, 2 of them were nurses, at my local hospital. The whistleblower then went on to say that Serco had taken over the accommodation, kicked them all out and put in 4 illegal migrants. Now, one of them went on to rape a very vulnerable young girl on Sutton Lawn Park in Ashfield. He went to prison for 14 years. That's how serious the offence were. Now, I raised this today with Sir Keir Starmer in PMQs, and even by his standards, the answer was absolutely gobsmacking. He started talking about Nigel Farage, 5 million quid, gold. Nothing in there at all to condemn this awful, vicious rape on this vulnerable young girl. You know, I know he's only got a few weeks left, but surely, this is the time now for Keir Starmer to start answering questions with proper answers. He could have at least, the very least, Martin, condemned this wicked attack on this vulnerable young girl. He couldn't even do that. He's not got it in him. I actually think there's something wrong with the man.
The case, of course, is Shiraz Malik, Pakistani asylum seeker, and the girl in question was particularly vulnerable. We understand she had learning difficulties. It was in a park in Nottinghamshire, and what's really gobsmacking about it, we've been covering today on the channel about the latest asylum seeker clampdown by Shabana Mahmood. We've had £250,000 migrant mansions in Stoke Heath in Shropshire. Locals there feeling flabbergasted that dream homes have been given away to asylum seekers. But to learn that a rapist in waiting was granted a house that was occupied by nurses.
Yeah. It's shocking, Martin. We're literally kicking people out of their own homes. You've got Serco, rolling up, saying to landlords, it's double bubble for 5 to 7 years, whatever it is. We'll maintain your property for you. If it's left in a state, we'll repair it for you. I mean, some of these landlords in Ashfield that have these HMOs, not just Ashfield, by the way, but it's all over the country. They've never visited Ashfield. They just buy these properties at auction, get somebody into, splash a bit of paint around, a bit of renovation, stick, 5 or 6 Afghan so-called asylum seekers in, illegal migrants, I call them, let's be honest. And the bigger picture here is, again, these people, I mean, I don't like to call them people, these monsters are lurking around parks, children's parks, outside schools, in shopping centres, preying and luring on vulnerable young girls. And the people responsible sit in that place over there. And when we let these people in, we put them in hotels, and then the Labour government will brag about, and they've done it today actually, brag about emptying the hotels. Where do these creatures end up? They end up on streets like mine. And just imagine if you're a parent, you've got a couple of daughters. I know you've got a daughter, Martin, and you're on the street with a couple of daughters, teenagers, and then the house across the road, the day after, you're watching this on the news, 6 Afghans rock up, Serco's took the property over, and they put these young men, early 20s, whatever they are, into this property. They're luring at the girls, which we know is happening. People on the left will deny this. It's scary, and it's terrible for these communities to have to put up with this.
Would you rather they stayed in hotels?
I'd rather them wouldn't come here in the first place. No.
Well, I know there was a second part of your question where you asked Keir Starmer to agree that all all illegal migrants should be detained and then deported, I think is what you said. How on earth how could Keir Starmer agree to that? How on earth could you do that?
Nigel, we've had this conversation many times.
I know, and I still haven't had an answer yet about exactly how
you've had an answer every single time, Nigel. I think you need to pay attention. What happens is when these illegal migrants come over, they shouldn't be put in hotels, they shouldn't be put in HMOs, they should be put in secure camps where they can never ever walk the streets, and they should be told you will never claim asylum in this country. Once we do that, Nigel, they will stop paying £5,000 to come over. Why would you?
But that's what the Tories did. The Tories did that
the Tories never did.
With the illegal migration bill, that's exactly what they did. They made the migrants inadmissible, so they couldn't claim asylum. What then happened was the backlog increased because people couldn't stay, but they couldn't leave either.
Nigel, you're not listening to what I'm saying. If you detain these people, put them in a prison, a secure camp, and never let them roam the streets until they're put on a bus and sent to the airport, they would stop coming. But why would you come to this country if you can't claim asylum?
Well, how do you say? Well, they couldn't claim asylum under the Illegal Migration Act, and they still came. It didn't stop the boats coming across.
The streets and they've all disappeared. We've got 50,000 illegal migrants missing in this country.
But the point was these people weren't allowed to claim asylum under the Tories, so that didn't work.
Let me put it in plain English for you, Nigel. I've been to the camps in France, and I said to the illegal migrants in the camps, the Eritreans, the Sudanese, if you were going to be detained in the UK and then sent back to your own country or a third country, would you come? And they said no. Okay. Every single one.
But these are people.
Here's the proof.
If you're talking about Eritreans or Sudanese who tend to get asylum here, which I agree with, but on the basis of that, how do you send people back to countries who won't accept them?
You're just not understanding, Nigel, what I'm saying.
I'm asking you how you do it.
Listen,
it's how you do it.
Once you detain people and tell them and keep them in a camp, I don't care if you keep them in a camp for goodness knows how long. Once you start detaining people and not letting them out into the streets, they will stop coming.
Yeah, but
then you can deal with it.
People are being detained now. 23,000 were detained last year by this government.
It doesn't matter. Detain them.
In
never let them out.
Centres where they couldn't come out.
The people in the Channel, who's in Dunkirk and Calais, they will stop coming as soon as they know their muckers are in the prison camp and they're not going out on the streets creating all sorts of mess.
So what you would do is create prison camps. That's the idea.
We need to detain every single migrant that comes over, so them on the other side of the Channel get the message that it's completely pointless going to the UK because I'll be locked up, and then we can deal with those in the camps.
But how do you get them out? I mean, you lock them up, which obviously is going to cost a lot of money because you're going to need secure prisons to keep migrants in.
You're still not getting the argument,
OK,
Nigel.
Gentlemen, I suspect we can carry on until Christmas, but we've ran out of time. Thank you very much indeed, Lee Anderson. Thank you very much indeed, Nigel Nelson. Now, Serco has previously said that they've taken all appropriate steps to confirm the suitability of addresses and added that they work closely with local authorities who are involved in the selection of individual properties. Now, still to come, the judge who sentenced 3 teenage boys for rape failed to take their crimes seriously enough. But we learned today that their sentence is being reviewed and now potentially they could face a custodial sentence. That's next here on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel. First, though, here's your weather.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The A78 northbound Barassi off-slip to the A759 remains closed for essential roadworks. On the A483, incidents caused local diversions in both directions between Llandanialonan and Fairfax. Meanwhile, in Leicester, the M1 southbound within junction 21 faces lane closures due to sign and signal faults, with lane 4 closed and lanes 1 and 2 diverted. These restrictions are expected to continue for some hours today. And on the trains, there is major disruption on the Elizabeth line between Reading, Heathrow terminals and London Paddington, as well as on Great Western Railway services. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
We're celebrating a golden summer with a terrific two-part Great British giveaway. First, you could win a sensational £60,000 in tax-free cash. And that's not all, as you'll also win our most precious prize to date, a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get us on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very good afternoon to my loyal viewers. It's 5 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting for you until 6 p.m. with a cracking show. And here's what's on today's menu.
Found out a week on Wednesday via a Facebook post by the MP. So none of us knew anything about it.
Locals left in the dark as asylum seekers are handed newly built £250,000 luxury migrant mansions. Alex Armstrong, our man, has been speaking to locals there in Stoke Heath, finding out about the impact this is having on their rural hamlets. All of this coming on the day when Shabana Mahmood has promised to get tough on asylum seekers. Is Britain sitting on an asylum seeker time bomb? And failure from the judge who spared 3 teenage boys prison over the rape and filming of 2 young girls in Fordingbridge. We'll bring all the very latest on a harrowing case. And white working class kids are the least likely of all demographics in Britain to go to university. And yet today it's been revealed they are barred from scholarships to top universities such as Oxford and Cambridge. Has our woke establishment thrown the entire generation of white kids onto the scrap heap? The two Hampshire police officers who handcuffed Henry Novak as he lay dying on a pavement and believed his murderer's lies are now to be investigated by the police watchdog. Did the police officers' fears of being called racist come first, while saving Henry Novak's life came a distant second? As Keir Starmer has bowed to Brussels, he's caved into the European Union once again, this time by reducing university fees for EU students from 38 grand to 9.5 grand a year. Now that means that EU undergrads will pay the same price as Brits, which could flood our unis full of students, push up grades and squeeze out native students. Once again, as Keir Starmer put Brussels before Brits. All that to come in your next hour. Welcome to the show. I want to thank you for your loyalty at 5 o'clock. An astonishing scene today in Stoke Heath. GB News has been there. Alex Armstrong, our man, talking to stunned locals who found out in the media. They found out asylum seekers, 83 of them, being shipped into what we can only describe as luxury £250,000 mansions backing onto fields. No bus service, we've learned today from a parish councillor, on a main road. Totally and utterly inappropriate. A triangle around a children's playground that now lies empty. Bewildered locals scratching their heads. What do they do to deserve this? The Home Secretary saying new builds should never be used to house asylum seekers, except they are being used to house asylum seekers in Stoke Heath. We've been there, speaking to locals, giving them a voice, because let's face it, the government seems to treat these communities as if they're mugs, dumping grounds for a problem they helped create, that the voters have been saying for successive year after year, government after government. Stop doing this to our communities. But they don't listen. They simply do what's happened here with the migrant mansions in Stoke Heath. We'll be live from there with our man Alex Armstrong. Get in touch usual way. GBNews.com/your say is a way to do so, or scan the QR code on your screens now. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Tatiana Sanchez.
Martin, thank you. The top stories. Kemi Badenoch has accused Sir Keir Starmer of leaving his successor with the defence funding black hole and claims he was too weak to cut welfare when he had the chance. The clash comes after Sir Keir Starmer promised an extra £15 billion for the armed forces over the next 4 years. But Treasury figures show the government has only identified £10 billion of the money. At Prime Minister's questions, Kemi Badenoch said the numbers don't add up and challenged the Prime Minister over who will pay the missing billions.
The Prime Minister has only increased spending by 0.01%. We can count, the generals can count, the Kremlin can count. His plan doesn't add up. How can the Prime Minister possibly stand there and say that this is enough?
Sir Keir Starmer hit back, accusing the Conservatives of weakening Britain's defences when they were in power.
Their record is cutting defence spending. My record is raising it to £300 billion and rising. Their record is cutting frigates by a quarter, cutting mine hunters by a half, and leaving 47 of 49 defence programmes delayed or over budget. My record is the biggest boost to defence investment since the 1980s. Their record is missing army recruitment targets every year for 14 years. We've given our armed force the biggest pay rise for 20 years and increased defence funding by £15 billion a year. That's a record I'm proud to stand on.
In other news, 2 Hampshire police officers are under investigation for potential gross misconduct over the arrest and handcuffing of stabbed student Henry Novak. The Independent Office for Police Conduct says the officers were the first to arrive at the scene late on the 3rd of December last year. The watchdog says they may have failed to recognise Henry needed urgent medical help after he said he'd been stabbed and couldn't breathe. It's also examining the decision to arrest and handcuff him rather than provide immediate first aid. One officer is also being investigated over whether they appeared to dismiss Henry when he said he'd been stabbed. A judge was wrong to pass community sentences on 3 boys convicted of raping 2 teenage girls in Hampshire, the Court of Appeal has heard. The sentences were referred to the Court of Appeal as unduly lenient by Attorney General Lord Hermer. Tom Little KC told the court the extent and nature of the offending was so serious, such that the only appropriate sentence for the boys was detention. But lawyers for the boys argued the judge had approached sentencing correctly, giving the best chance of rehabilitation while protecting against future offending. One of the girls was 15 when she was raped in November of 2024 at an underpass near a river in Fordingbridge. The other was 14 when the incident happened in January last year. Elsewhere, millions of households in England, Scotland and Wales will pay more for energy from today as Ofgem raises the price cap by 13%. The average gas and electricity bill now rises to £1,862 a year. The regulator says suppliers faced higher wholesale costs during the US and Israel's war with Iran. The cap limits what suppliers can charge per unit of energy, but it doesn't put a hard limit on a household's total bill. And finally, the Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has banned asylum seekers from being housed in new-build homes after a backlash over plans for a development in Shropshire. It comes after more than 80 asylum seekers were set to move into 20 new-build homes in the small village of Stoke Heath. The homes are reported to be worth around £250,000 each. Locals say they were told the development would be used for affordable housing. The Home Office says the Home Secretary has now introduced robust processes to make sure that new build sites like Stoke Heath can never be considered again. And those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. The Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, has announced that newly built homes will no longer be used to house asylum seekers. Well, at least that's what they're telling us, but there's a problem. The move follows reports that 83 migrants were due to be housed in new build properties on a Shropshire estate, now being dubbed Migrant Street. You can see pictures on your screens there from Stoke Heath in Shropshire. Our man Alex Armstrong was there for us. This is an area that's a hamlet of no more than 300 people. We spoke with a local councillor earlier on, Councillor Mark Gilbert, who told us that there are cows on the back of this land, rural fields. There's not even a bus service in this area. It's on a main road, as you can see there, a now abandoned children's playground that was built with lottery money and the local kids helped to build it, now simply lying vacant in wait for the new inmates who came over on dinghies. Well, GB News' Alex Armstrong has been there for us and spoke with some concerned locals. Here's Alex's report.
Behind me is what is being dubbed as Migrant Street. That's right, because this brand new development here behind me has been earmarked to host up to 80 asylum seekers. That's 20 houses or so here that would go to so-called refugees here in Britain. At least one migrant family has been allegedly already living in the area. Now, this has caused massive uproar amongst locals. They've been quoted as saying that they felt lied to by the authorities who told them that these houses were going to be for social housing. Now, if you were to buy these brand new, it would cost you up to 250 grand, and you can see why. It's a beautiful local area, lots of greenery, very rural. Just have a little look behind me here. You can see a playground being built, lots of those brand new, lovely new builds. But this really is a small little village in the middle of nowhere practically, and moving 80 or so asylum seekers into this area would have been an utter disaster for the local community, who say that this would have inflamed tensions around the villages surrounding this area. It would have caused massive disruption to those people. So I'm going to be speaking to lots of locals today to get their view on what is going on here.
We only found out a week on Wednesday via a Facebook post by the MP. So none of us knew anything about it. As far as we were concerned, they were going to be rented out or sold for affordable housing.
Mad. These houses were built solely for the local surrounding area, for the families, low income. And they've never had chance at all because it's not been up for sale.
There we go. Fantastic reporting from Alex Armstrong. You know, I'm so proud of what we do on this channel. You know, so many people around this country find out on social media, those locals there telling us in Stoke Heath, the local parliamentarian, that's Mark Pritchard, he came on the show yesterday. They were told about their fate by the Home Office, just foisted upon them. Serco buying up properties using taxpayers' money, paying above market prices, doing whatever they want with them. The locals, the last people to find out. You can see confused, alarmed, dare I say, scared. Most of all, they feel powerless and they feel ignored. Well, you can watch the full interview tonight and plus much more from Alex Armstrong on Patrick Christie's tonight, and that's hosted tonight by Alex Armstrong. Alex has been down there all day. Thank you very much, Alex, for going down there, giving us a quick nibble on this show. The full lot can be seen tonight on Patrick Christie's tonight with Alex Armstrong. Back in the studio here in Westminster, let's have some discussion about this. I'm joined by our chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster, and GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Catherine, let's start with you. This is coming on the day when Shabana Mahmood is launching this asylum clampdown. Tough new laws which don't allow people to stay in the country if they claim family connections. £10,000 towards their accommodation fees are being paid back. And despite what they told us last night, a Home Office spokesperson told the People's Channel new houses should never house asylum seekers, they are housing asylum seekers in places like Stoke Heath, and the locals are feeling completely and utterly betrayed.
Yes, and you can completely understand that. I mean, Shabana Mahmood, the Home Secretary, sounds pretty hardcore. She's put a lot of tough-sounding proposals forward. Of course, we know that quite a number of Labour MPs are horrified. Angela Rayner said that extending the time that you've got to wait for indefinite leave to remain to 10 years was un-British, and who knows whether Andy Burnham, when he becomes Prime Minister, might soften some of those. But I remember when Shabana Mahmood unveiled her sort of vision, her message to her Labour MPs was, well, go with me or you're going to hand the country to Nigel Farage. Now, the Home Office are saying about this that new homes should never house asylum seekers. Well, we know that they are doing in this instance. And also that earlier this year, the Home Secretary introduced robust processes to ensure that new build sites can't read my own writing, can never be, like Stoke Heath, sorry, can never be considered again. Note the use of the word again, yes, because here we are, we see the evidence in front of us. They're saying this won't happen again. But I think the question is, how did it happen in the first place? Because you want to reduce the pull factors. That's part of the reason for getting people out of hotels, along with saving a lot of money. But surely putting people into brand new, very lovely looking houses is just going to encourage more people to come. And clearly this is a very small community with absolutely no infrastructure around it, the wrong place. But then, you know, wherever these people are put, locals never want them there.
Nigel Nelson, the problem with this is that not only are they dream homes for asylum seekers, this is a dream PR campaign for the people smugglers. Pictures like this on our screen, they will just pump out on TikTok saying, look what you get if you go to Britain on a dinghy. They will feel like they've won the lottery. It literally looks like a lottery prize. And the locals in the area and people around the entire nation who get up in the morning, who go to work, older people like ourselves, we were able to buy houses, but our children are now staring down the barrel of property prices that are simply vanishingly distant in terms of the chances of getting a house like that. And it feels like the great British giveaway where the Brits are at the back of the queue and the asylum seekers feel like they've won the lottery.
Yeah, actually, I think you're right here, and I think Catherine asked the absolutely key question, how did this happen? What we understand so far is that when these houses were built, they were originally designated as social housing. That was obviously over a year ago because no one's moved in. So what happened to council tenants who are on the housing waiting list who may have wanted these houses? If we're talking about houses that aren't going to be occupied for any reason, then there is the other point about saving the taxpayer money. A hotel costs about £144 a night to put an asylum seeker in it.
But you see, the problem
if
with
you
that,
can spread them out over housing, it comes down to about £24 a night.
But the problem with that, I think this is something that our political class simply cannot get their heads around, is that this is not just about pounds and pence. It's not just about the fact that it might be cheaper to stuff an asylum seeker in one of these migrant mansions than it is in a hotel in a city centre. The cultural impact, the sense of unfairness is palpable. And it's not just about the cost, Catherine.
But it's not government policy. The point here is that Shabana Mahmood has made it quite clear that new builds should not be used for asylum seekers. You're right. It's happening here. It's happening here. And again, the question is why? Why was it not used for the purpose it was designed for, which was for council tenants?
Well, because quite simply, Catherine Forster, this government has claimed, and you might say it's a laudable claim, to empty the asylum hotels, because the asylum hotels last summer precipitated riots. And they had to come up with a solution, sharpish, house them what's called occupation, beg your pardon, and in extreme cases like this, migrant mansions. They're so desperate to move the problem, they're creating a fresh PR disaster.
Yes. Absolutely, because people hate the idea that you can break into the country illegally, be put up in a hotel, and also it's a massive pull factor. But, you know, here we are with this, another pull factor, and Andy Burnham, the incoming Prime Minister, has spoken about houses of multiple occupation recently and feels that a lot of them are being dumped in sort of poor areas in the north of England, and understands the resentment that is being built. But these people have got to go somewhere. I'm puzzled with this, though, because if these were supposed to be for social housing, given that apparently no buses, there's no infrastructure round about, the people that live there are going to need cars to get anywhere. Well, if you're in social housing, you might not have a car, and certainly asylum seekers.
OK, thank you very much, Catherine. Thank you, Nigel. Stick with us, because a bit more politics after this. But before that, a Home Office spokesperson has told GB News this: new homes should never house asylum seekers. They should never house asylum seekers. They're not saying that they won't. They should never house asylum seekers. And earlier this year, the Home Secretary introduced robust processes to ensure new build sites like Stoke Heath can never be considered again. There we go, again, but not in this instance. Now, back to some politics. Public faith in the Labour Party continues to dwindle as the latest polls show the government only saw a slim rise in the polls, even with the prospect of an Andy Burnham premiership. Now, the latest YouGov survey out today puts the party on just 20%, and that's only 2 points higher than last week, and still within the polls' margin of error. Now, Reform UK remains in the lead, polling at 24%, only suffering a 1% drop from the previous survey. So here's the question: has the Burnham bounce already stopped bouncing? We're here to speak with me now as the pollster and the Professor of Politics at the University of Strathclyde, Sir John Curtis. Sir John, always a pleasure to have your esteemed company. So the Burnham bounce, we're waiting for it, but I suspect, Sir John, the same old problems will await the next Prime Minister as the last one. We've been talking here about asylum, about inflation, about immigration. Do you think the Burnham bounce is going to bounce much higher?
Well, I think, first of all, Martin, one has to say that, I mean, the hypothetical polling that was done during the Makerfield by-election and subsequently that asked people, well, how would you vote if Andy Burnham would become leader of the Labour Party? Most of it suggested that perhaps Labour might benefit by around 5 percentage points or so, i.e. it might produce some improvement in Labour's position, but certainly wasn't going to fundamentally change the political landscape. What we've seen so far is not just the YouGov poll. We've now had 5 polls since Keir Starmer's resignation. But we should remember at this point, at this stage, Andy Burnham has now become the Prime Minister presumptive, because we're now expecting that when the nominations for Labour leadership open up next week, that he will be the only candidate, and that by towards the end of this month, he will become Prime Minister. But so that all we've got so far is what's the impact of Starmer's resignation? And on average, and it is only on average, it's a rise of about 3 points. One poll had them up by 5, another one had them up by 1. The rest is about 2 or 3. So there's probably been a marginal improvement for Labour so far, simply as a result that Starmer is no longer there. Whether it goes any further, well, the truth is at the moment one has to bear in mind that quite a lot of people, more in common, more polling out today, asking people to say what they think about Andy Burnham. Well, a quarter of people say don't really know. Another quarter don't really have a very clear view. And in the end, the answer to the question is whether it's going to be a Burnham bounce will only really be known when he's in 10 Downing Street, when he's been there for a little while at least, and when people therefore have begun to get to know him beyond, as it were, those of us who are particularly excited and follow the innards of political developments in SW1.
Now, Sir John Curtis, of course, Sir Keir Starmer was the least popular Prime Minister in living memory. So Lee Anderson joked Nigel Nelson would be more popular than Sir Keir Starmer. I mean, anybody would be more popular than Sir Keir Starmer. So you'd expect there to be a honeymoon period for any new Prime Minister. But when we start to see details on policy, when the same old problems start to emerge, historically, Sir John, all premiers enjoy a nice honeymoon period, don't they? But how quickly, typically, do they wear off?
Oh, that depends. It varies very much from the Prime Minister. I mean, Tony Blair, it didn't really wear off until he made the mistake of joining the second Iraq War. Keir Starmer, in contrast, very, very short honeymoon. These things vary. I mean, you're absolutely right. The challenges facing this Labour government have not suddenly been transformed because Keir Starmer is standing down. The challenge, which Andy Burnham fully recognised in his speech on Monday, above all, is to try to get economic growth so that therefore, A, all of us feel better off, and B, the government's got enough money to fund things, including not least the plans for more spending on defence, which are clearly at the moment as yet not fully funded. Although the challenges of immigration you've been talking about, all those challenges won't disappear. What I think we are anticipating, and what will be the challenge for the other four principal parties, is that we are anticipating that Andy Burnham is going to be a better communicator. Not difficult, frankly. But just compare yesterday's statement by Keir Starmer over the defence investment plan. Again, we had the classic Keir Starmer saying, tough choices. We've had to make difficult cuts here. Laying out, being very honest, but laying out to people a rather pessimistic scenario. Whereas Andy Burnham in his speech on Monday was not much detail, but trying to say to people, we need to have hope. We need to realise that we can turn things around. This is how I'm hoping how to achieve it. And so I think certainly we can anticipate shall we say, some idea of vision from Andy Burnham, some idea of hope. The crucial question, of course, will be, given all the challenges, whether he'll be able to realise this in practice. And indeed, yes, maybe in 12 months' time, we'll begin to get some idea whether he can make more progress than the government's been able to do so far.
Well, to go back in time and use that Blair famous phrase, surely things going to get better, at least for the Labour Party, in the short term. I appreciate your company and your knowledge as ever. Sir John Curtis, thank you very much for joining us on the show today. Now, still to come, white working-class kids are the least likely of all demographics in Britain to go to university. But today, we learn they've been barred from scholarships to our elite universities. Is the government throwing an entire generation of white kids on the scrap heap? That's next here on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me. What's the truth of the matter?
So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News. Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I ever got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah.
Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight on the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m, only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howard. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First of all, say welcome to the UK.
Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 5:27. Welcome back to the show. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, here's a question I ask all the time on this channel. Are white working class kids being excluded from British society? Well, reports suggest that many diversity scholarships and bursaries at places like Oxford and Cambridge are available to students from ethnic minority backgrounds, but they are not available to white working class students. Now, the universities have been accused of having a two-tier academic society. Let's get my next guest in now. I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. Philip Kisley, the Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum. Philip, thank you so much for joining us on a topic I know you care deeply and passionately about, as I do. A report came out on Monday identifying the precise issue that white kids are on the scrap heap. They've been abandoned by governments for successive decades. For 25 years plus, white kids, particularly boys, have been at the bottom of the attainment leagues, and there's nothing out there to help them. Today, compounded by the fact our elite universities are simply locking them out. Dr. Philip Kisley, it sometimes feels like the establishment hates white working class kids.
It really does, doesn't it? And these DEI projects, these initiatives, these educational initiatives are actually the opposite of what they purport to be, Martin. They're not about being kind. They're not about caring. They're not about taking kids from deprived backgrounds and giving them an opportunity. They are absolutely and utterly about race, and they are about pathologizing white people. Now, if you see, just on an individual level, if you see everything in terms of race, if that's the only lens you look through and you see racism everywhere, then people would think you're a crank, a nutter, obsessed. But that is precisely what's happening in our institutions. This obsession is institutionalized. It's systemic. And it feels as though the people in charge, the government, the chattering class, all of these people just think we should cheer it on. But it is absolutely harmful. We only have to look at what happened with the Henry Novak case to see that the people who are indoctrinated by this stuff lose their humanity, and they cannot see what's in front of them. And I think that's what's happening in education here. We've got white kids, and as you say, primarily it's white working class boys who are suffering. They are not going to university. They are not attaining. And you can take the thought further. You can say that, well, it's going to be white working class boys who are going to be on the street. They are going to be depressed. And it's those kids eventually when they grow up who are going to kill themselves. They are the demographic most likely to commit suicide. So we have a huge problem here. And it feels as though the government, the education establishment, all of it, they don't want to do anything about it because, as I say, this is ideological. If you're obsessed with race and you're obsessed with punishing white people, they can do no good whatsoever. And all you want to do is to take them out of the system. And unfortunately, that's what's been happening, Martin.
Philip, when you look at the situation in universities and in schools and in the media and in the police, as you said, in the public sector, practically everywhere, it's now so deeply imbibed. Is it possible to remove all of these 10 rules, or do you think it's gone too far? I want to try and be positive. Sometimes it's hard.
It really is hard because some of us, I know you in the media and myself in the media, but myself in education, I've been talking about this for ages, for literally decades. And it feels as though you are banging your head against a brick wall. But I think the difference between, then 5-10 years ago and now is that there are so many examples of how this is absolutely poisonous. We see them time and time again. And they are just, they are there every single day. So people do see it. I think the problem before is that people thought it was just, it's just political correctness gone mad. It's just, universities are a bit crazy. No, this is blocking people. This is keeping talented hunted young kids out. This is harming people. So I think looking forward, what we really need is we need a change in philosophy. We need to acknowledge that we're at the end of the liberal era, and it isn't just about politics. It's about taking apart the blob. It's about taking apart the mechanisms of control. It's all the arm's length institutions. It's all the Blairite stuff that the Tories never got rid of. It's dealing with this deep, fundamental stuff. I think we can do it, and I have to say that because I have to believe that we can do it. Because if we don't, we literally don't have a future as a cohesive society. We are not educating our children at the moment. The first thing we need to do is face that fact and then think about the depth of the problem and the scale of the problem and then go to work on it. It needs a new government, but it needs a government that is prepared to take on these mechanisms of power and pull them apart.
Dr. Philip Gisley, fantastic stuff. Thank you very much for joining us on the show today. I always appreciate your words. I sincerely do. Thank you for your time. Back to my panel now. Quick reaction. Catherine Forster and Nigel Nelson. Catherine Forster, you look very emotional during that report there because it's true. We have abandoned white working class kids.
Completely. And this isn't surprising. It's deeply depressing, but this has been going on for decades, that people just assume that white kids and white people more broadly are okay, and if you're not white, you need all sorts of help and support. I mean, I saw it as a school governor. They have particular metrics for children who have English as an additional language, and now that's all fine, but there's still lots of working class kids falling through the cracks, and plenty of ethnic minority kids have parents who are very driven, who are absolutely committed to their education. Just look at the number of Indian and Asian families who end up as doctors. So this assumption that you should be concerned because of somebody's colour, give them more opportunities. Surely we should be looking at class, and that feels like that still isn't happening.
Nigel Nelson, final word to you before we go to the news. In our goal, in the government's goal to be inclusive, have they been exclusive of those who also need help?
I think you're right that quite clearly white kids from poor backgrounds do need help. But what is being identified at the moment is that the help they need is to make them ready for learning when they get to school, to make sure they actually stay in school. That means family support, and it's that where we should be looking at.
Okay, thank you very much, Nigel Nelson. A source at Oxford has outlined that UK students from lower income households were eligible for a non-repayable annual bursary of up to £6,150. And in a previous statements from the University of Cambridge, they said Cambridge provides one of the most generous bursary support packages in the UK. More than £10 million of funding is available every year through the Cambridge Bursary Scheme to all students from low-income households. Now, still to come, the police watchdog has launched a gross misconduct investigation into the two Hampshire officers over the death of Henry Novak. But for now, if you're travelling home from work or from school, as I always say, stay safe and stick with us. Here's your traffic and your travel update.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Traffic is slow southbound on the A1 at Gladsmuir due to a broken-down vehicle causing lane restrictions. An accident has occurred southbound on the A470 between Taffs Well and Corryton, leading to delays in that area. On the motorway network, caution is advised on the M6 near Birmingham, where congestion is expected until around 6:41 this evening. And on the trains, there is disruption on multiple London Overground routes, along with delays on Avanti West Coast services between Carlisle and Lockerbie, as well as between Watford Junction and London Euston. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon. The top stories at 5:30. Andy Burnham, who's likely to become the next Prime Minister, is facing a funding gap of nearly £5 billion if he's to meet the government's new defence spending commitments. Sir Keir Starmer's announced there would be an extra £15 billion for the armed forces over the next 4 years. But Treasury documents show only £10 billion has been found so far. Two Hampshire police officers are under investigation for potential gross misconduct over the arrest and handcuffing of stabbed student Henry Novak. The police watchdog says the officers may have failed to recognise he needed urgent medical help after he said he'd been stabbed and couldn't breathe. The Home Secretary has banned asylum seekers from being housed in new build homes after a backlash over plans for a Shropshire development. It comes after more than 80 asylum seekers were set to move into a new development in Stoke Heath, which locals say they were told would be affordable housing. And household energy prices will rise by 13% today for millions of people in England, Scotland and Wales. The price cap set by the regulator Ofgem's going up to reflect the higher wholesale cost that hit suppliers during the US and Israel war with Iran. Those are the latest headlines. More from me at 6 o'clock.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more, or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Good afternoon. Welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The wind's picking up for many of us through the night and first thing tomorrow morning. A bit of wet weather around, particularly across northern areas tonight from this area of low pressure. The isobars squeeging together as well. That's what's picking the winds up as that low approaches the northwest. Further south, been by and large a fine day and a fine evening to come with sunny spells for many. But the rain pushing in across Scotland, Northern Ireland, spreading into northern England, parts of North Wales before midnight, and then trickling south. Not a huge amount of rain for the gardeners, but some getting into the Midlands, southwest England by dawn. At the same time, it turns a bit drier across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it will turn gusty here. Quite a warm, humid night in the south. Temperatures holding up at 16 or 17 Celsius. Quite a grey, murky start in parts of the southwest as well. Further north, a fresh start, but blustery too, with showers packing in across western Scotland throughout the morning. For eastern Scotland, should get some shelter, so generally a dry start here. A few showers may be coming into Northern Ireland, but they'll be fizzing out pretty quickly. A cloudy start, different feel to compared to today across the south, with misty, murky conditions around the coast in the southwest, and quite breezy everywhere. Some rain and drizzle across southernmost counties of England. That should tend to pull away and disappear, all but from Kent by around lunchtime. And then we'll see sunny spells developing. The showers fading in western Scotland. Still one or two in the far northeast, and staying wet and quite windy in Shetland. Otherwise, the wind's easing a little. Some sunny spells for the afternoon. Temperatures about average, but probably feeling quite warm across the southeast, where 26 or 27 is possible. Thursday evening is a fine summer's evening as the winds continue to ease down and most places stay dry. There's more sunshine to come. A bit of wet weather in the far northwest at times into the weekend, but otherwise quite a bit of sunshine and temperatures just rising a little as well.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. Your time is 5:41. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, the police watchdog has launched a gross misconduct investigation into the two Hampshire police officers over the death, of course, of Henry Novak. The 18-year-old was handcuffed and arrested as he lay dying after being fatally stabbed in Southampton, instead of receiving much-needed first aid. Now, in a statement, the Independent Office for Police Conduct said the serving of gross misconduct notices does not necessarily mean that disciplinary proceedings will follow. At the end of our investigation, we will decide whether any officers should face disciplinary proceedings. Well, joining me now is the former police officer and the founder of Fair Cop, and that is Harry Miller. Harry, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. So the independent police watchdog here are saying they won't make any decisions yet, but as far as you're concerned, Harry, as a former copper, do you think they should face charges?
Yeah, I think the individual police officers need bringing to task, but I also think that the chief constable needs bringing to task. It's well known, nobody joins the police because they want to have their humanity squeezed out of them, and that's what's happened here. I have no doubt that these officers, when they joined up, when they signed up, when they put on their uniform, they wanted to go out and arrest bad people. Now, something's happened between that good intention and them meeting Henry Novak on that fateful day. And what's happened to them is that they've had their humanity removed, and what they've had it replaced with is systemic racism. That's what's happened. So yes, these officers are individually guilty of gross negligence, but also the chief constable is guilty of gross negligence. Every officer that taught those officers is guilty of gross negligence. There is something deeply rotten in the heart of Hampshire and in the heart of policing. Now, let's just have a little look at this, Martin. One of the things that they said that they're going to be investigating these officers for is this, and I'll read it to you, you'll be shocked. There's an indication one of the officers may have breached the standard of courtesy for appearing to dismiss Henry saying he had been stabbed. This isn't about courtesy. This isn't a breach of courtesy. A breach of courtesy is when you're rude about an old lady's hat. This is a young white boy who is handcuffed and who is bleeding to death and begging for his life at the feet of police officers. This has got nothing to do with courtesy. This is about inhumanity. And as I say, I am delighted that these police officers are going to be taken to task, but they need to be taken to task for the right thing, and that's got damn all to do with courtesy. But then senior officers must be taken to task. Now, it's only a few years ago, Martin, since I had a run-in with Hampshire Police myself. And one of the things that they said is that they would arrest all of the journalists from the Daily Mail if only they had enough manpower. They said that. They said that. They have a deep-rooted hatred of anything that is conservative, anything that you and I would consider to be normal. They have a deep-seated hatred of white people, and that hasn't happened by accident. That has happened because it has been drilled into these officers by senior officers, and I will not rest until I see these senior officers brought to task.
Harry Miller, sobering words. And thank you as ever for being so forthright on the show. I appreciate your time as ever, Harry. It's always Miller time. Police officer, founder of Fair Cop, Harry Miller. Thank you very much indeed. Short reaction from you, Nigel Nelson. Some very, very strong words about Harry Miller has fought the police. He's been a police officer. Perhaps there's something in this. That serving without fear or favour is now a distant memory. The police themselves, right to the core, right from the top, seem to have been imbibed in wokeism.
But this is something that the Independent Office for Police Conduct have to look into. At the moment, what they're dealing with is officers turning up to a report of crime and then allegedly not treating a victim there with the appropriate care that deserved, and that's why the Henry Novak case was so appalling, and that film was so appalling. But to talk about, as Harry did, that they've had their humanity removed, well, that's going a bit far. Let's let the investigation play out, go its course, and let's see what they come up with.
Fair point. Thank you very much indeed, Nigel Nelson. Now, coming up next, with another heat wave on the way and thunderstorms even more likely, what happens if your plane is struck by lightning? Well, GB News visits Europe's only lightning lab, and meanwhile, if you're in search of some holiday sun, don't get struck by lightning on your plane. Here's a forecast of some of your top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Mixed weather across southern Europe at the moment. Quite a few showers for Italy, some thunderstorms, breezy through central parts of the Mediterranean, as well as the Canary Islands and Madeira. But an emerging hot spell is expected through Portugal and for south and west Spain. Temperatures of 40 Celsius for Lisbon. Unusually hot for this location. Here are the showers for Italy, but they ease during Friday and into the weekend.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The final preparations before a world first. At RAF Wittering in Cambridgeshire, these JCB mechanics and engineers are attempting to rewrite history, chasing a world land speed record with a hydrogen car. The JCB Hydromax puts out 1,600 horsepower, powered entirely by two hydrogen-fuelled internal combustion engines. The 32-foot-long vehicle is trying to beat JCB's existing record, which was achieved with a diesel engine back in 2006. It reached a speed of over 350 miles an hour. For chairman of JCB Lord Bamford, the new car is about pushing the boundaries of new technology.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Father's Day has long been a fixture in the family calendar. But as household budgets remain under pressure, some are questioning whether the tradition of buying gifts is beginning to fade. Jim Cox has worked in the gift-giving industry for more than 30 years and says Father's Day simply isn't the draw it once was.
We're kind of reliant on the big gifting period. Father's Day is probably the weakest of like the bigger gifting events. It's picked up a bit this week, but probably not as much as I would expect. And I think generally people, like average basket size isn't really where I'd want it either. So I think people are spending a bit less, being a bit careful, and also thinking general trend in gifting is thinking maybe about experiences and spending time with people.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
What does it do for people who are wounded, injured or sick veterans? What does it do for them to do this sort of voyage on this wonderful sailing ship?
Good morning. It is that human impact, and that's why Turn to Starboard exists, and even at the Invictus Games Birmingham 2027. It's about giving people maybe a reset, maybe seeing, taking that breath, but also a bit of camaraderie as well. Literally everybody's in the same boat. The blue environment is completely different. Everything is different on a boat. Walking, sitting down, making a cup of tea, even going to the loo is slightly different. So it can give people a break from sort of the pressures of life.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's 10 to 6. I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News. Now, with yet another heat wave incoming, researchers warn that we should not only brace ourselves for sun, but also for lightning storms that surely will follow. GB News reporter Meg Cope has this report.
After days of soaring temperatures and more to come, thunderstorms have lit up skies across Britain. But while the displays may look spectacular, they'll also leave many holidaymakers wondering what happens if lightning strikes your plane.
It might not look much from the outside, but hidden away here on this industrial estate is one of Europe's most unusual laboratories.
Inside, scientists create artificial lightning on demand. They use it to test aircraft, helping engineers understand exactly what happens when a lightning bolt hits a plane. And this is where that testing happens.
Three, two, one.
The strike lasts less than a second, but carries enormous amounts of electrical current. By creating lightning in controlled conditions, researchers can safely test materials against one of nature's most powerful forces.
So aircraft used to be made out of metals, and metals could conduct the lightning very well, so there's very minimal damage here. This has been struck at the lab. But aircraft are now made out of carbon composites, and the way that we protect them is by placing a copper mesh just underneath the plate. This is a worst case scenario strike, and it hasn't gone through the material, and this is the stuff that we've been researching on to make sure that aircraft are safe.
This demonstration shows what happens when lightning hits an aircraft. Rather than passing through the cabin, the electrical current travels safely around the aircraft's outer skin before leaving through the tail. As Britain experiences more summer thunderstorms, the work happening here couldn't be more relevant. Whether it's protecting aircraft or the infrastructure we rely on every day, these scientists here are helping make sure the next lightning strike is one we're prepared for. Meg Cope, GB News, Cardiff.
A magnificent report there from Meg Cope. Now, coming up next, GB News' very own Thunderbolt, of course, the one, the only Michelle Juby. Geez, what's on your menu?
Hello, Martin. So much we need to talk about tonight. Of course, I want to look at the state of the economy. Also, do you remember that horrendous attack that took place in Dublin, where the little school children were targeted? Well, a man has been found guilty off the back of that, and the condition that one of those little girls has been left in is absolutely heartbreaking. I need to talk to you about that and a whole lot more, so get yourself sitting comfortably, and I will see you in a sec.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good afternoon. Welcome along to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The wind's picking up for many of us through the night and first thing tomorrow morning. A bit of wet weather around, particularly across northern areas tonight from this area of low pressure. The isobars squeegeing together as well. That's what's picking the winds up as that low approaches the northwest. Further south, been by and large a fine day and a fine evening to come with sunny spells for many. But the rain pushing in across Scotland, Northern Ireland, spreading into northern England, parts of North Wales before midnight, and then trickling south. Not a huge amount of rain for the gardeners, but some getting into the Midlands, southwest England by dawn. At the same time, it turns a bit drier across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it will turn gusty here. Quite a warm, humid night in the south. Temperatures holding up at 16 or 17 Celsius. Quite a grey, murky start in parts of the southwest as well. Further north, a fresh start, but blustery too, with showers packing in across western Scotland throughout the morning. For eastern Scotland, should get some shelter, so generally a dry start here. A few showers may be coming into Northern Ireland, but they'll be fizzing out pretty quickly. A cloudy start, different feel to compared to today across the south, with misty, murky conditions around the coast in the southwest, and quite breezy everywhere. Some rain and drizzle across southernmost counties of England. That should tend to pull away and disappear, all but from Kent by around lunchtime. And then we'll see sunny spells developing, the showers fading in western Scotland, still one or two in the far northeast, and staying wet and quite windy in Shetland. Otherwise, the wind's easing a little. Some sunny spells for the afternoon. Temperatures about average, but probably feeling quite warm across the southeast, where 26 or 27 is possible. Thursday evening is a fine summer's evening as the winds continue to ease down and most places stay dry. There's more sunshine to come. A bit of wet weather in the far northwest at times into the weekend, but otherwise quite a bit of sunshine and temperatures just rising a little as well.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Traffic on the A1 southbound at Gladsmuir is restricted due to a broken down vehicle. An accident on the A407 southbound affects flow between Taffswell and Corryton. A collision on the M4 in Windsor and Maidenhead is reported, with clearance anticipated by 7:07 p.m. Motorists should drive carefully and allow extra travel time. On the trains, multiple London overground routes face disruption. Avanti West Coast services are delayed between Carlisle and Lockerbie, with disruptions between Watford Junction and London Euston. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's a Great British Giveaway Golden Summer Celebration. Your chance to win 2 fantastic prizes. There's an incredible £60,000 in tax-free cash. Plus, you'll also get your hands on a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry starts at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it. Don't get this on the BBC. Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. More and more people are now tuning in to GB News.
They shape our programmes, we try and incorporate them in our shows as much as we can.
Our audience are really interactive.
Our listeners, our viewers, they're